Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. It is the appointed hour, and I'm going to call our meeting to order and begin by asking our Deputy Mayor, Shirley Keaveney, to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to see a full house with us today. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation. We also recognize the Métis whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. We extend our gratitude to all Anishinaabe and Métis peoples and their descendants, past, present, and future, who continue to care for and inhabit these lands and tend these waters.
And now I'll ask you to just join me in a moment of silent reflection on today's business. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof around the table today? Councillor Forder.
Yes, I have an interest in item 6A on today's agenda on the basis that my company often works in partnership with the Georgian Triangle Humane Society.
Thank you very much. And seeing no others, I'll just remind you that we can declare it at any time that it comes to mind. And we'll continue then with the announcements today. And maybe I'll ask Mr. Armstrong if you have any announcements for us. If you'd wish to go first.
Let's start off. Your worship. I'd like to start off, and as something that will be occurring on the go forward is I will be introducing new staff who have started with us recently with council. I'd like to start off by welcoming to the Engineering Services Department, Cassandra Sesko. She's our project manager of facilities. Cassandra. So that's in Cassandra. Also with us is our new manager of human resources, Sarah Mahan. And I don't think the third one is here. Supreet Kaur is our new environmental services coordinator, so working in the water and wastewater division. So that's we'll be doing that on a regular occurrence as new staff start. The other thing I will be mentioning is just to give council a bit of an update on where we are. As we know, council dissolved the BIA with an intent to move on with the Main Street organization. Staff have been busy getting the initial project framework outlined for this important initiative. Over the coming few months, we will be facilitating the launch of what will become a community-led nonprofit organization focused on economic revitalization and historic preservation of our downtown. The framework for this will be a 4-point Main Street approach, which focuses on organization, promotion, design, and economic restructuring. There is much to do in terms of first step preparations and scheduling. We will be reaching out to the community shortly for their insights and active participation. We will be seeking Meaford citizens that have passion for local economic development and the vibrancy of a historic downtown to play important roles in assisting staff right from the beginning of this project. So that's just a bit of an update on where we are on that project. That's it.
Thank you. Announcements around the table. Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And on behalf of our Meaford Rotary Club, and I have spoken to Rotary House before, but I want to just mention some changes with the Rotary Thrift Shop. Some new hours for us. We'll be open Mondays from 10 to 1, Wednesdays 10 to 2, Thursday 4 to 7 in conjunction with the food bank, Friday 10 to 2, and Saturday 10 to 3. So those are some extended hours. We are in need of donations, and donations will be accepted anytime during those hours of operation. And we just had a wonderful donation last week that I have to share with you. We have a number of prom dresses and suits that are really appropriate for formal wear. If anybody knows the people who are going to the prom or to weddings or anything anything of that nature. We've got an incredible selection of really beautiful formal wear at the shop. So thank you very much, and do come visit us.
Anyone else have any announcements? Harley?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, a couple of important events coming up. The first one, for all of us with a bit of Scottish blood in us, which I don't have, the Robbie Burns supper. No, of course, everybody's got Scottish blood when it comes to Robbie Burns. It's at the Christchurch Anglican. The tickets are on sale. I understand there are only advance tickets to be sold. So you need to get your order in. And a fine lady by the name of Mrs. Truda Howard is managing the ticket sales. 519-538-9032. And somebody has neglected to put down the date. It's Sunday. Mayor Francis, can you help us?
Thursday, 20th, this Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Thank you so much. It's great to have the help from the public. And the second one, if I can, Your Worship, and this is equally important. This announces the return of bingo to the urban area of Meaford, February 9th at the Meaford St. Vincent Community Center. That's a Thursday night. Doors open at 6. The number calling begins at 7. And this is sponsored through our Meaford Connects and Kinsman. So good to have bingo back in the downtown. I vaguely remember when it used to be at the old Legion, and it was a great night. The only difference now is there's no smoking. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. And if nobody else has anything, I do have a couple of announcements. One, I'm delighted to report that there's another unique new business coming to downtown Meaford. It's called Solo Gym. And it is a gymnasium that you can set your own times and go by yourself, go with a friend or whatever. And it's located right behind Go To Sushi, which is right across from 21 Trowbridge, the town offices. And they're going to have an official opening between 1 and 3 on Saturday afternoon. And they've invited me to officiate at that, and it'll be a real pleasure. Also, I'd just like to remind you that the mayor's levy, which had to be postponed earlier this month, is on for Sunday, the 29th. And I do hope that all of you will make a point of coming to Meaford Hall between 2 and 4 and having a glass of wine with us and a chat. And for families, I'll be at the arena between noon and 2 for a free skate and to meet and greet people there. So I do hope you'll take advantage of it. It's we're not spending a lot of money here, but we are definitely open to talk about anything and just get to know people better. Thank you. So now the public participation portion of today's meeting. I think everybody knows, but if a member of the public wishes to make a deputation on items on the council agenda, or ask a public question, they can do so either in person here at the council chambers or remotely via Zoom, phone, or internet. Members of the public wishing to make a deputation or ask a public question do have to register in advance with Legislative Services by 10 o'clock on the morning of the meeting. And you can do that by being in touch with the deputy clerk, either via email or by phone. So the public can also watch the meeting, this meeting and other meetings of council via the municipality's Meaford YouTube channel. It's www.meaford.ca/YouTube. We have 2 presentations to start the meeting today. And the first one, I'm going to call on Sonia Reichel and Rob Peacock of the Georgian Triangle Humane Society Regional Center for Pets and People. Yes, now is the time to excuse yourself. Yes. And thank you for your declaration.
Thank you.
And we'll call you back, Brandon.
And to move the slides, I just press this clicker here. Yeah, perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Reichel. I'm the Executive Director with the Georgian Triangle Humane Society. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon. We've got a great presentation that starts with who we are. Let me just see. Not working. So next slide, please. We have a great presentation that starts with who we are, a little bit about what's happening over at our animal center on 10th Line in Collingwood. We want to share some of the challenges that our Humane Society is experiencing right now and present some solutions as well as a partnership opportunity. Next slide, please. But before I get into that, we want to start with thank you. I have been working at the Humane Society for 10 years now, and during my entire career, we have had a really great relationship and partnership with the municipality of Meaford. Not only are we pound providers, meaning that if a stray dog is picked up in Meaford, that it comes to our Humane Society and stays with us for a period of time before its owner comes to reclaim the dog, but we also have partnered in a variety of programs working proactively to reduce pet overpopulation, promote spay-neuter surgery, and really work together so that we can provide better lives for pets and people in our community. So thank you very much. In addition to that, you guys have been a regular supporter of our rabies and microchip clinics. We hold them regularly here in the municipality of Meaford, ensuring that pets have access to rabies vaccinations. And you have been the sponsor of that, as well as a long-standing partner with our walkathon fundraiser that we hold on a regular basis. The last year was held in the Meaford area. So next slide, please. But a little bit about us. We are a growing organization. We have about 1,500 homeless animals that come to us on an annual basis. About 1,300 of those animals are adopted out to local families. We have a fully accredited companion animal hospital. It's a very small but mighty hospital. We'd love to give you a tour sometime. We have about 1,600 public pets that come to that hospital on an annual basis, receiving access to spay-neuter surgery, so there's not unwanted litters of kittens or puppies that are being born, as well as providing spay-neuter surgery to the homeless animals that come to us. We have 27 staff and 250 volunteers. We're a very, very busy shelter, which gets us into the problems that we're about to talk about. And I like folks to know that we have 1,500 homeless animals that come to us on an annual basis, but 3,000 people that come to us every single year experiencing crisis or emergencies, and we're working with them to keep those pets out of the shelter system and in their homes where they are just experiencing a short-term crisis, such as domestic violence, such as short-term temporary shortage of resources. So that's where our pet pantry comes in, or a medical emergency with their pet. Next slide, please. And this is just a list of our programs and services. They are innovative and compassionate, all centered around pets and people in our community. We provide anything from surrendered services. So we accept surrendered cats and dogs from the municipality of Meaford, as well as stray cats and dogs. But we also want to work proactively, as I said, to keep pets and people together. So we have training programs, we have youth programs, we have a pet food bank that distributes 18,000 meals to our communities every single year, emergency medical assistance, and emergency boarding. Next slide, please. And I'll take a minute to just talk about our programming with youth. Actually, our humane education coordinator lives here in Meaford, and we passed her on her way into work today. We have about 2,000 youth that go through our programs every single year. That's a staggering number. It started in 2017 when we were awarded funding through the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and that allowed us to pilot a program that is centered around how youth and animals working together can improve their mental health. We know that when youth learn about how animals think, feel, and communicate, we've measured an 18% increase in their social and emotional skill development, which means that they are learning to better communicate, to relate to their peers, and by doing so, are improving in their mental health. We have after-school programs, we are in classrooms, we have virtual programs, and it's just one of the ways that we are working to increase wellness in our community through our work with pets. Next slide, please. Specifically with the municipality of Meaford, we wanted to just highlight again our partnership. We are your pound provider, so often dogs are coming to us more and more regularly. The trends are seeming to say. We house the dogs for period of time. If they're not claimed by their adopter or owner, I should say, then they do go into our adoption program. Sometimes we're accepting litters of puppies, sometimes just stray dogs on their own. And of course, along the same line and themes of strays, we accept in hundreds of stray cats from the municipality of Meaford as well. Oftentimes we'll get calls about particular homes that have numerous cats. In my history working for the organization, sometimes it'll be 30 cats, and we work together to work with the pet owner, with the municipality, and with our hospital services to get those cats fixed, to bring them into the Humane Society if they're going into adoption program, but really working to find compassionate solutions for those types of situations. To that end, Meaford was one of the municipalities where you first partnered with us to start Meaford Cats. This was years ago, but it was an opportunity for folks in the community that had feral cats on their property to find a solution. So really ensuring that those cats, those what we call community cats or feral cats, could get access to spay-neuter surgery and avoid huge populations from being able to develop. To that end, now this has evolved into what we call community cat days at the Humane Society. So the last Friday of every month, we provide free spay-neuter surgery to community cats. The vast majority of those cats are coming to us from rural areas such as Meaford, and it's a really proactive way for us to keep those populations under control. One of those days are quite amazing to see. We'll have about 30 cats that will come into us on average. So it's a busy hive of activity. As I say, we accept in stray and surrendered cats and dogs. And for the accessible spay-neuter surgery, those are for owned cats. We had about 136 residents from Meaford utilize those surgeries last year. Next slide, please. But our future is vulnerable. We are in a building that was designed 25 years ago to accommodate 500 animals on an annual basis. And as I said previously, we have 1,500 that come to us annually and 3,000 people on top of that are coming to us for our programs and services. As we all know, the population in this region is growing tremendously, and our charitable services have to grow in tandem so that we can keep up with the need. To that end, we have designed and have a dream for a 20,000 square foot building that will be a regional center for pets and people, serving the 6 regions that are part of the Georgian Triangle area. This new building will attract 30,000 visitors per year. It will be a hub for our community. It'll be where volunteers will find placement, whether they're youth or seniors. It'll be where folks will find full-time employment. As we are anticipating, this facility will have 50 full-time jobs available, as well as 600 volunteer placement opportunities. Next slide, please. And to make this dream a reality, to reach our $15 million goal, we are working together with the entire community as well as our 6 municipal partners to realize this dream. We are in the middle of our we're beyond our design development phase into the site planning of the build. We do have a piece of land in the town of Collingwood. It's a 5-acre piece of land that we are working on at the moment. And we are having conversations, deputations, and good discussions with the 6 municipalities that we consider part of our regional service area. Next slide, please. And that brings us to my last slide today. Today, we are asking for thoughtful consideration around an ask that will be presented to each of the 6 municipalities that we partner with. An opportunity for a donation of $250,000 over 4 years, starting with this year, that will work towards us raising our goal of $1.5 million from those 6 municipalities, reaching our ultimate goal of $15 million to allow this project to become a reality. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Councillors, anyone have any questions or would like to make a comment? Deputy Mayor Kivini.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Sonia, I just wanted to thank you both for your presentation and for the great work that you and Rob and your team are doing to take care of animals and people in our community. It's really incredible. And it's an amazing initiative, as you call it, your dream that you are working towards. So a couple of questions, if I may, and a comment, and you'll be aware of this. You suggest that 32% of Canadians own pets, and I would venture to say in Meaford, it's considerably higher than that. And we are designated dog friendly, as you'll be aware. So yeah, this community really cares about their pets. So I'm wondering, you are going to be speaking to other communities, and can you share with us if you've had any positive feedback or any movement towards commitments from other communities that you have presented to thus far?
Yeah, we've had a lot of positive feedback. We're right in the middle of those deputations right now. So 2 this week, 1 next week, 1 last week. Nothing concrete at the moment, just good conversations, and those presentations are kind of happening in real time, all at the same time as we're finding out.
And in terms of time frame, when do you hope to have funds raised to be able to move forward with this build? Is it the 4 years that you're looking
Yeah,
at?
our goal is to be able to open the doors for the center in 2026. Backdating that, we'll be able to put shovel in the ground 18 months before that. So that's the timeline that we're working with at the moment. Yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Reichel. Very good presentation. During the pandemic, the most crucial part of the pandemic, I understand it was more common for people to take on a pet or two. I think primarily dogs and cats. With the supposedly the most crucial part of the pandemic behind us, I have heard that there is an increase in dogs and cats being turned in for a variety of reasons, which we don't need to get into. Have you found that at your location? How much of an increase? How big of an impact has it had on you folks?
Yeah, the number, the specific percentage, I don't know that yet. We're going through our 2022 numbers. We do know across the board that intakes locally rose last year over 2021 and 2022. Absolutely. And we have been measuring the reason for those surrendered animals. And primarily what the cause of surrender has been centered around is housing insecurity, access to food, so food insecurity, and just generally the pressures that we're all experiencing from an economic perspective that are impacting pet owners as well. We are, as a country, experiencing a veterinary shortage that is impacting us locally, without a doubt. Many of our local veterinary clinics are struggling to meet the demands of pet owners due to staffing shortages. And as a result of that, plus what is happening in our veterinary industry, which is that they are being purchased locally by corporations, we're finding that access to veterinary care is more and more of a struggle for everyday pet owners. To that end, that's why we're working at things like access to spay neuter and rabies and some of those basic wellness procedures, but it still is not creating the bridge that some pet owners are needing. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? If not, Sonia, thank you very much. I will say I was at the sod turning back in the spring, and it convinced me that this is going to be a tremendous project. And the excitement that day also tells me that you will be successful. And I'd just like to also share in the discussions I've had, I think it's important for people to understand that the ask of Collingwood, which will host this facility, is actually double what the ask of the other surrounding municipalities is. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next presentation is Karen Coleman. Oh yes, do you mind getting Brandon back? Karen is going to present to us on snowmobile traffic on 25th Side Road West. Thanks for coming before us today to, tell us about a situation, Karen, and go right ahead.
Happy to be here, Mayor Kentner, council and staff. I do have a deputation. I'm representing my neighbors on 25th Side Road. And I will start my presentation by opening up my slideshow. Do I just press the middle button here? Oh, side button. Okay. Okay, just to give everyone some geography here. This is going up Road 112, also known as the 9th line, and we're approaching the juncture of the 25th side road. So it's at the very top of the hill that's going towards the base. When you turn onto the road, you see a sign that says no exit. It is a dead end road. And what you see here is the curve that's beginning, the beginning of the blind curve. There are 3 blind curves on the road, and this is the beginning of the first one. It's approaching Irish Mountain Lookout. Second. Okay, this is just going down the road a little bit. The slides, I'm even having trouble seeing it, but at the end of this road is Irish Mountain Lookout. There's Irish Mountain Lookout, and that's the beginning of the blind curve, which I call blind curve 2. That's Irish Mountain Lookout. And I just wanted to give you a sense also of the boundaries here of this geography. We've already seen, I've already shown you that the eastern boundary is the junction of the 25th side road and line 9 or highway 112, where you saw the dead end road. The north boundary is the boundary, which is the southern boundary of the 4th Canadian Division Training Center. The west boundary is the Bayview Escarpment Conservation Area. And so I'm going to move on a little bit more. Okay, now we're just passing Irish Mountain Lookout, and you're at the end of this visual here, at the end of the road, that's the 3rd blind curve approaching. This is at the crux of the 2nd blind curve and the 3rd blind curve, where the Irish Mountain B&B is located. I also want to say back here at Irish Mountain Lookout, Irish Mountain Lookout is a municipal property, and Irish Mountain Lookout is in the database of Meaford's Master Recreation and Cultural Strategic Plan. So I'm saying this because it's a significant attraction for the community. Lots of people just go up there, even have weddings, family reunions, picnics. There was one of the Red Door events there before COVID. There are always people at Irish Mountain Lookout, which makes it, you know, one of the liabilities is that there are a lot of people at visiting Irish Mountain Lookout. And in addition to them, they're the residents of Irish Mountain, of the 25th side road. There are 10 residences on the road. There are 20 people to 30 people living there, depending on whose children are visiting. There are at least 5 young children. I mentioned the Irish Mountain B&B. And there are several pets on the property, on the road, at least 6 dogs. So I'm here to petition for a new bylaw to exclude snowmobiles and ATVs from the 25th side road and be included in the off-road exclusions of Meaford's official plan. So I'm going to go back now to more of the road. Okay. So that photo there is of changed direction to show you that that's the blind curve going east. So there's this blind curve 2 is blind going both directions, right at the crux of Irish Mountain B&B. Then when we get to 265532 residents, you can see that there's a straightaway of about maybe 300 or 400 meters to the end of this road, at which point we have a sign of an unmaintained road. So this is at the very end of the road. That's the address. And right from this address on, the road is unmaintained. And we have there the first sign. What does it say? Can someone read that, please? Thank you very much. Then next, we have the OFSC has posted their trail with no trespassing. And then we have their use at your own risk sign. These last two signs were posted suddenly last year, to everyone's surprise on the road who use this facility. And then there's on the way back going west, there's the stop sign and follow the trail. So the trail is going back. From this point, the trail goes down the escarpment for maybe 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers, probably more like 2 kilometers, going to the 11th line. And it's unmaintained. There's a wetland there. It's off the escarpment. And I think that's probably the attraction to the snowmobilers. But to get there, they've got to go on 25th Side Road and they speed all the time. And that's our main complaint. It's a safety issue because there are the 3 blind curves going east and west. There's the 300-meter straightaway past all the residential driveways going towards the dead end. And prior, when the people enjoy cross-country skiing, snowshoe, walking, biking, hiking, bird watching, and geocaching all on this stretch of land and down into the valley. There have been numerous vehicle mishaps on the road when the snow falls, especially most recently, just last week, a car went off the ditch and I don't know how it got out, but there's detritus on the road showing signs of it. People delivering food or packages often go off the road because of the curves. I also wanted to say that at the end of the road, there's a little turnaround, which has been there for a long time. I can't tell you how long, but it's there. And there's a hydro pole there just for your reference, which we can't really see. So I also wanted to say that last year, one of our neighbors, and it's in my, it's at the very beginning of this presentation, actually. I wonder if could I go back and just bring that letter back to your attention that our neighbor wrote last year and sent it in by email, but didn't hear a response from anybody, staff or council. So I've taken on the role of petitioning again on everyone's behalf to bring this to your attention. So would it be okay if I went back to that letter?
If you can do that, and you have a total of 10 minutes, which you are rapidly running out of.
Okay, well, basically, then we don't have to do it then.
No, just if.
Well, because I can't
Okay.
read it from here.
Okay, no, we can't read it either. So, yeah, we have it on our
Okay.
thing. So,
Gail Burgess wrote it, and okay, I will just let you sit with that and know that she did complain about this last year and no one responded. So I just want to say, now I want to go into the Meaford's official plan, which is an excellent document, same as the Master Recreation and Culture Plan and the Master Transportation Plan. Really great documents. And I've noticed that in the official plan, bylaw 66, it's regarding off-road vehicles, and it establishes that there's a precedent for exempting certain roads from being allowed to have off-road vehicles. And that's section 20 under permitted roadways, 2.3, I'm quoting now, notwithstanding 2.1, no owner or operator of an off-road vehicle shall operate such a vehicle upon the Georgian Trail. And so, and it goes on a little bit. So I'm bringing this to your attention to say that there is a precedent, and it shows that Meaford does recognize that there's a need for safety and segregating recreational users. And then section 2.4, no owner or operator of an off-road vehicle shall operate such a vehicle on municipal property including but not limited to any park that is under the jurisdiction of the municipality of Meaford. And so snowmobiles do drive onto Irish Mountain Lookout. In my neighbor's words, I went through a lot of trouble speaking to my neighbors, and with your permission, may I read some of their comments?
Sure.
Or I could also, if time's running out, I could send them all to you in a document afterwards. What's your
I think
preference?
what might be more valuable, do people have questions on council, have questions of Karen? If you want to ask some questions and get a clearer understanding, or let her continue presenting here.
Yeah.
I don't see
Okay.
any questions, so you go ahead.
Okay, well, just one other thing. The reason it's not just snowmobiles per se, it's that they're speeding. That's the problem. They're just always speeding. They're trespassing. They're going into the neighbors' properties. And that's very scary for us because they're blind curves and there's snowbanks. And when you come out of your driveway by car or walking, you can't see what's coming down. So we're fairly frightened and concerned about that. And I also want to just say that the Snowmobile Association, District 9, Meaford is in District 9. And I'm taking this right off their website. There's more than 2,900 kilometers of groomed trails. And so by comparison, for skiing or snowshoeing, well, for skiing, cross-country skiing, there's a far less inventory of trails. Like maybe I've counted several of the clubs, but I'm sorry, I didn't include Collingwood or Clearview, but the ones I've counted, there's only 184 kilometers of cross-country ski trails compared to 2,900 of OSFC trails. So I think there's an imbalance here, and there's a case that I'd like to make for recognizing that we don't have to have snowmobiles on all the trails, that we can have some more segregation. And so I'm just we're petitioning the town to create a bylaw to exclude 25th Side Road. So I'm finished now and I'm welcoming questions.
Any questions for Karen? Councillor Greenfield?
Thanks again, Your Worship. Thanks, Karen, for your presentation. Have the neighbors up on Side Road 25 sat down with the OFSC and had a friendly chat about your concerns?
No, we haven't. But when you look onto the OFSC's website, they talk about obeying speed limits and being courteous and all that stuff. But clearly that's not the case.
Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. Thanks for your presentation, Karen. You did well. I was just up at Irish Mountain before the meeting to check things out. Two things. Not that it matters a lot. I went back through all my April, March's, February's emails. I don't see anything from that letter that you said we bought.
Yep.
I just went through them. I haven't seen it. So.
Okay, it does show on that there's who it's addressed to in the municipality.
It wasn't addressed to council.
Okay.
So anyways, having said that, plus I have a meeting with the president of the Snowmobile Club to get their side and talk to them. I have a meeting coming up this week. And I hope we can iron this out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And seeing no more questions. Okay, thank you very much, Karen,
Sure.
for your presentation.
Thank you. May I send you all the comments from my residents? Is there anything else you'd like me to send?
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like me to send?
No, that would be fine.
Okay.
Just so that we all have a chance to review them. Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that this afternoon. Thanks.
Okay, and now moving on to section B, deputations on agenda items. And we have 4. So I'm just going to remind you as we move into deputations that the time limit for them is 5 minutes versus 10 minutes for presentations. So each of the speakers coming up has basically 5 minutes. And first, I'm going to call on Kim Grafton, who is speaking with respect to the request to purchase and dedicate unopened portion of Bridge Street.
Nice to see everyone here, new and old faces. Good afternoon, Mayor Kentner, council, staff, and of course, fellow citizens. My name is Kim Grafton, and I'm here in regards to the unopened road allowance on Bridge Street. I live at 124 Bridge Street, and my property is located right at the corner of Bridge and Fuller Streets. I am directly adjacent to the SkyDev proposal, and I would like to bring forward some alternative considerations, giving you another point of reference to consider when you undertake your decision on the disposal of this road allowance. In the report, staff states that they are unaware of any other municipal use for this small parcel of land, and that's quoted. I would encourage council to consider repurposing unopened road allowances, this one, and where possible, others, as community gardens, allotments, butterfly and or bee habitats, pop-up lending libraries, or simply as natural green spaces. Current development levels and government mandates are drastically increasing density in urban areas, as we all know. The pressure on the public green spaces will also continue to increase significantly. Adding to this, our current climate crisis, I believe serious consideration should be given to retaining these lands as community assets to promote community well-being now and into the future. Each small step we take can have a cumulative effect towards positive change. In the report, staff also ascertained that the lot is too small to be of interest to other parties as a lot addition. I think given the offer to purchase shows intent and definite interest by my husband and myself, and I think the proximity to our own property deserves a little consideration by council, not to be just discounted. It is further reported in the staff report that if the road allowance is sold as a separate parcel, it would create issues with road alignment and increase impact on residents, namely headlights shining into residences. If this is an issue of concern, how is it that staff approved a parking lot situated directly across from my property that will see vehicles entering and leaving 24/7 and shining their headlights into my residence? If the impact of headlights is a major concern, moving the entrance from Bridge Street to the east end of Boucher Street would negate any such issues, as there are no residents directly opposite in this area. Another benefit of moving the entrance from Bridge Street is that it would mean the main thoroughfare into the development would not bisect the proposed pedestrian walkway and making it much safer for pedestrians. Also, by moving the road alignment, you may actually create a traffic calming measure, which the neighbors have often said they are worried about. Furthermore, there has been no maintenance undertaken by the municipality on this road allowance in the last 18 years. I can attest to that. I live right beside it. Nothing has been done by the municipality to it. The retention of unopened road allowances need not require maintenance by the town if community partnerships and engagements were pursued, but the public benefit could be immeasurable. We are offering to take on stewardship of this parcel of land to be retained as an asset, not just for existing residents, but also for the benefit of future residents, including those of the development, as well as at no cost to the municipality. You could actually gain an additional $5,000 to add to the road reserve. To me, it seems a win-win situation. It would also provide a goodwill gesture that would go a long way to ameliorate the impact of this proposal on the neighborhood. And I would like to remind you of your own strategic priority, in particular, the ensuring sustainability. And I will read this word for word.
and I'll move on. We have a strategic group who have been working on the rules and procedures in terms of reference for different advisory committees. Here are the timelines proposed for visioning and strategic planning. And I will hand these out afterwards. The timelines are based on the above estimate for timelines starting on January 17th. 2 weeks to fast track a consultant to hire who could begin the work by mid-February. 2 weeks to prepare background and community meeting material and survey. End of February, community consultation, and this goes on. And then within 100 days, we'll do the wrap up, and then there'll be a meeting with council to review final results and recommendation. Council to finalize key goals, priorities, deliveries, and timelines by the end of April. It goes on. So I will hand out these timelines. There was much discussion during the election about advisory committees, and Mayor Kentner was clear through ratepayers dialogue, they have to be revamped so ratepayers could be empowered and, more importantly, feel they were really contributing. It is proposed that 2 advisory committees come alive now with others through the strategic planning. So what we're talking about is the Heritage Committee. There are heritage permit applications that will be coming through before the summer. People could miss the whole construction period. No meeting has been called. We are proposing and request council pass a motion today that Chair Sullivan set the agenda with the past committee members until the new committee is in place and have the old committee up and going by January 31st, 2023. The other thing we want to talk about, and this is completely different to what has been done in the past, is an Economic Development Advisory Committee, investment readiness, excluding tourism and special events. This municipality is facing on the horizon 3 major projects, the Loon, the SkyDev, and TC Energy. The dynamics of this community will change rapidly. You beg the question, is council ready? This is the most important municipality of Meaford Advisory Committee. We need an industrial park as soon as possible with complete infrastructure, and wastewater capacity has to be understood. We are proposing a new economic advisory committee be set up prior to February 28th, complete with seasoned leadership from an elected official or an individual with corporate or business acumen. A motion today will be required for a new economic development committee if you so wish. At least 4 to 7 advisory committee members should be seasoned business or corporate people. And if these people do not apply, we will have the right to approach and ask qualified candidates. Selection process of advisory candidates will be determined by the chair. Recording secretary would not be a voting member, will prepare minutes and will develop the agenda with the chair and other committee members. The committee needs to step out of the box, such as create research committees. Members of the committee should ask senior members of, say, SkyDev to participate as members. Committee will liaison with council, committee of the whole, personally at least quarterly. The last thing I want to talk about is the goal is to hire a director of economic development, investment readiness to coordinate corporate and community opportunities. This is a lot different than what you've probably ever seen before, such as liaison with corporate businesses, capture the spin-off growth of new businesses, find investments in our communities, such as doctor recruitment programs, heritage programs, through community betterment programs from developers and corporations. So I just want to repeat again, the goal is to hire a director of economic development, investment readiness to coordinate corporate and community opportunities. As a ratepayer, I'm looking for positive change through a much needed third-party facilitator to provide professional strategic planning, visioning, and council needs to revamp the advisory committees. Please note that I had help with this from ratepayers who were involved with me through over 4 years through the economic development journey. I appreciate these colleagues' commitment. I wish this council the best of luck, and thanks for the opportunity of talking today.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to the latter half of his address? Seeing none, thank you again.
Okay.
So now, public questions. And if there are any public questions, if there are not, council inquiries. Councillor Yurg.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. This is going to be under the umbrella of telecommunications. On December 19th, I attended the Gray Road 7 public meeting at Knox Presbyterian Church. A couple of observations and a question. We've obviously talk a lot about the importance of rural internet and kind of facilitating that moving forward. So at that meeting, so with the Gray Road 7 project, what came up was I asked the engineers whether they were going to plan to put in any conduit or any kind of channeling to support potential facilitation of infrastructure for internet. They told me at that time, no, there'd been no real plan. So I asked why not? And one of the obvious answers was consideration of cost. Can obviously increase any engineering project. I fully respect and understand that. However, I would say that what I would suggest and encourage is that even though that's a county project, but I would hope that our own projects, and I guess this is Jessica and Tori, that we are considering when we're doing major infrastructure projects where we are opening up road allowance, that we are either planning to put in conduit to facilitate infrastructure, or we are approaching local utilities with the opportunity to do so in concert with that. It's not a big stretch to be able to do that. And I'll give you a really classic example why this came up. Muir Street is a dead spot in Meaford. It's been forever. It's well below the provincial objectives requirements for internet. If there's a fiber FOSC that's literally outside of Knox, if there was conduit put in that project going up to Muir Street, which is proposed, any utility then could make a proposal to actually go across Muir Street to center and help facilitate Muir Street, which is at a dead spot because they're at the bottom of the hill. So I'm just asking whether or not that is in the scope of possibility for or consideration for future projects, that when we're doing generational work, that they are considering putting in conduit or facilitating it through companies that could do the work with in concert.
Through your worship. So we have in the past discussed and looked into creating a policy to determine how we would do that, because obviously, as you said, there's multiple ways that we could be putting conduit or allowing others to be putting it in. Unfortunately, with some staffing changes, that got put on hold and hasn't moved forward in recent time. It is very much, as we have seen, most likely a level of service change that would come with that, because there are those costs associated with it that we aren't currently spending. So I think there are a couple of pieces of the puzzle that would kind of have to come together to move forward with it. But if it is council's desire to do that, we could definitely work to put a policy together so that we are appropriately putting money towards where conduit would be going, and not just putting it in, not knowing the best location. So we're getting the best bang for our buck and improving the infrastructure instead of just adding additional infrastructure in the same locations.
Councillor Tierney.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I had a question today for Ms. Wiley, if I may. And we're going back 3 weeks now to the Christmas storm. And I just wanted to begin by expressing my appreciation to all the staff, all the operators who worked above and beyond, gave up their holiday time to be it on the roads to try to keep our people moving so they could get to their families. And so that's very important. I think that this council thank those members of staff who dedicated their Christmas holiday to opening up the roads. But my question for you, Jessica, because we as council had several comments relating to the banks downtown. I just wondered if you could review the standards for us, the west side of the street, you know, the banks were significant and people couldn't park and couldn't access the businesses and so on for, I'll say, a couple of days, if I remember correctly. So I just wonder, as I say, if you could review those policies and standards with us so that people, and I know we're not on the internet now, which is unfortunate, but so people here at least can understand how that works.
Through you, Madam Chair, or through you, Mr. Chair, to you, Madam. Thanks so much for the accolades. We do have a really wonderful team, and it was probably one of the biggest storms that we've had in a really long time. Especially with the volume of snow, then followed with the volume of rain in such a short amount of time. So it definitely kept everyone busy, but everyone did a great job. So thanks so much for that. Yes, so banks downtown. We do have a policy that once they reach a certain height, that they are removed immediately, which means that our staff will come and clear them out. So I also heard the same comments about the previous storm that we just had. The challenge there, and I do know for a fact that our team was there very quickly after considering the amount of snow that happened. I believe I got questions about it on Christmas Day, and we had been there already by like the day after Boxing Day. So I feel like the time frame was fairly quick considering. But it's once the snow reaches a meter. So at that point, then that triggers. And I actually think we put tape, I could be wrong, but we put at some point we put tape on some of the posts just to give like a visual so that people understood. And I should check to make sure that it's still there. It's red if anyone's looking, just to see where the snow is so that it kind of triggers us coming in to remove it. That is a fairly quick standard as well in general, so that people are aware, given the minimum maintenance standards for sidewalks and snow removal and all that good stuff. But we do have a standard. It is a policy, and we do follow it. Once the snow reaches that height, we're in to remove it within 24 hours.
I thought it was 72 hours.
Oh, 72 hours. Yeah.
It's a big difference.
It is a big difference. Yes.
I question whether the standard is high enough, really. But
Well,
I realize that if we want it different, we pay for it, right? I understand that. We understand that. But yeah, go ahead. Okay. Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship, through you. And to Mr. Smith, I do have a question. Last week, I had an opportunity to visit the Inner Township Fire Department. They were getting a donation from the Enbridge Gas, and a couple of the more high-ranking fire department members asked me if I had heard any new news about the agreement between ITFD and our municipality as far as the partnership's concerned. Now, I know I've asked you about this before, Matt, and okay, this will be the last time I ask you, because I know that the paperwork is in the works.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, a couple of things in relation to this. First of all, I do appreciate the confusion that members of the public feel when these reports come back to us. We often get questioned about that, so that's just something to keep in mind. But I certainly stand behind the motion that I brought forward at the last meeting and appreciate support for that and look forward to further discussion as we go through our strategic planning priorities process. But I do want to bring forward the suggestion from Mr. Cant regarding reinstating our heritage and EDAC committees. And I'm wondering, first of all, if council wishes to discuss that, and second of all, what the process might be to move forward with that. And of course, there'd be an amendment to the amendment, I guess, required to make that change. But I'm just would like to pose that topic to members of council to request their feedback on going forward with the Heritage and EDAC, reinstating those two committees, which I'm quite certain we would still determine that we would need as we go through our strategic planning process, and just wanted to introduce that for discussion around the table.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was very happy to support you, Madam Deputy Mayor, when the motion was brought forward. That because we haven't had our strategic priorities, that we wouldn't do that. So I was very happy to do that. And just from my own understanding, from what the presenter said today, it's my understanding that members of the community that are appointed to different boards and advisory committees, their term ends with the last council, right? So in order to do a carryover like this, that would, in my mind, be something totally different, just to carry over, unless the clerk can say that we can carry on from a previous committee after having an election.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can do whatever council wants in some way or other. I think in this case, Councillor Bell is correct that terms end at the end of the term of council. So if council passed a motion today to direct staff to reappoint existing members, previous terms members of the Heritage Committee on a temporary basis, then we would have to bring a bylaw forward for council to pass to appoint those members. So it is possible. It certainly wouldn't meet the terms of the appointment policy that council's adopted, but anything's possible.
Just before we move off of that topic, Mr. Smith, what would the process be for that? Like, do we have to have a notice of motion at the end and kick it down the road further, or can there be a motion to reinstate that committee on a temporary basis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is about boards and committees for this term of council. So an amendment to the motion that you've currently got on the floor can be whatever you would like it to be about boards and committees. So, and this is council, not committee of the whole. So it will be a decision of council. So if you were to give that direction today, then we could have a bylaw present on the 30th, as long as council is specific enough about what it is you want to do. If you want to recruit members for a committee, that will take longer, because we need to get that in the paper, get it on the website, and so on, and we normally take 3 to 4 weeks to do that, to give people a chance to apply and so on, and then council would have to decide.
I think we're particularly concerned about the Heritage Committee, because we do not know, but there's every possibility that someone may make an application and there would not be a committee in force to deal with it. So I think that it would be advisable, if we can, to bring a motion like that forward. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would bring an amendment then that we go forward and reinstate the Heritage and EDAC committees with the existing members if they're willing. And then once we establish our strategic priorities, that we then go to the public and move forward with the usual practice of going to the community for applications for those two committees.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity, I believe, Deputy Mayor, that's in addition to the existing motion. So it will become the council, one, direct staff to bring an updated report after council's had an opportunity to explore our community visioning and strategic priorities process. And two, bring forward bylaws to reappoint the members from the previous term for the Heritage Advisory Committee and the Economic Development Advisory Committee.
Until we.
Are you able to frame that for us?
Yeah, I think that's how I would word that. Yes.
So do we deal with that at this point in time? I think we have.
If there's a seconder, then
Yes.
yes, that becomes the motion that you need to deal with on the floor.
Seconded by Councillor Bell. All in favor? Carried.
So, Mr. Mayor, you now have a motion on the floor that has been amended. So the final motion that you must debate is the council, one, direct staff to bring an updated report after council has had an opportunity to explore our community visioning and strategic priorities process. And two, direct staff to bring forward bylaws to reappoint members from the previous term of the Heritage Advisory Committee and Economic Development Advisory Committee.
Okay, and so we need to vote on that motion.
If there's no further discussion, yes, but
Is there any further discussion? Can I call that motion then? All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And thanks for the help on that. Anything else on this item then? Okay.
sorry, Mr. Mayor, there can't be anything else on this
No, there
item
can't.
because you've now resolved it.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Item 8.2 then, there are actually none for consideration, and therefore we're ready for a motion to move into committee of the whole. Moved by Councillor Greenfield, seconded by Councillor Bartley. All in favor? Would you like a short recess before we do that? Everybody's good? Okay.
I will just say, Mr. Mayor, that we are back live on YouTube now. The power is up across town, and so we are streaming again.
Thanks for that information. That's good. Okay. So committee of the whole. Our first item is a request to purchase and dedicate unopened portion of Bridge Street. I think people are familiar with the recommendation, but I think I'd better read it just so everyone is clear. The committee of the whole recommend council of the municipality of Meaford declare the unopened, number one, declare the unopened portion of Bridge Street east of Fuller Street as surplus lands. Two, declare the best use of the said lands to be lot addition to the abutting parcel. Three, approve the conveyance of the said lands to Skydev GP 2 Inc. for $120,000. And four, direct staff to bring forward the necessary bylaw to stop up and close the unopened portion of Bridge Street and to enable the conveyance once the applicable survey has been deposited in the registry office to identify the property. Is there a mover and seconder to put this on the table? Moved by Councillor Bartley, seconded by Councillor Uhrig. All in favor? Okay. Who would like to go first? Well, why don't you start?
Oh dear. No, it shouldn't always be me first, but it seems to work out that way. Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, I know typically that staff don't speak to our reports anymore, but this one is really important. And I wonder if staff would mind kind of breaking this down for us, particularly because we have some really concerned members of the public with us. And my one question is $120,000. Can you give us a breakdown in your estimation of how that number was arrived at as an offer price?
Yes, through the mayor, for a municipality to sell property, we have to have an appraisal from an accredited appraisal that establishes a value that we have to get. We cannot sell it for less than that, otherwise it could be considered bonusing. In this case, there was an appraisal done by Colliers International, and a very accredited appraisal. In reviewing the appraisal, they established the value of the property on a per acre basis based on the sale of the three parcels, so all three parcels on the that SkyDev purchased. So the per acre price would have came up with approximately $108,000 when I did the math. And they had offered 120, which was exceeded the appraisal by Colliers. So that's how we were satisfied that they were meeting the objectives of our sale of property bylaw, the municipal act, and selling property in establishing the price.
Mr. Greenfield.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for asking that. I am not ready to vote on this recommendation. I think I think there are other options. I'm hoping one of the other members of council bring up the offer from the Graftons and the suggestion that Ms. Grafton made for a couple of options for that property. I think we're really missing a particular mark on this one. The property is approximately 7,500 square feet. It's a small lot. We have a number of small lots in our downtown area that size or smaller that have homes on them. The municipality owns this property. I totally realize that's where SkyDev wants to put an entranceway in and a walkway. The walkway concerns me maybe more than the entranceway. We've got 7,500 square feet. It would be.
Sorry, are you having trouble hearing? Yes. Can you move into the microphone there, Marley? Thank you.
Got the red light on. Sorry.
Closer to you, okay?
Yeah, it's about 7,500 square feet, big enough. My suggestion would be that we have two options. We haven't really got into a serious discussion about affordable, attainable housing yet around this council table. But here is an opportunity to place a building, not a big building. I'm going to say 2,400 square feet. That's 1/3 of the parcel approximately. 2 stories, 4 1,200 square foot apartments in this building. They would be geared to income or some kind of affordable housing. How do we get that? Municipality owns the lot. We could go out to RFPs to our building community, and say, hey, look, give us your estimates, give us your price. One condition is that the facade of the building would have to blend in with the townhouses that SkyDev are going to build. The other option would be that we give the lot to SkyDev for $1 and say, hey, SkyDev, you build us an apartment building unit on that property. Show the community that you realize our housing problems, that we need housing, arguably every bit as much as we need $700,000 townhouses or condos. Let's partner on this. Let's do this together. Let's prove to the community that you're not just there for SkyDev, but you're there for everyone who lives in this community. Just a couple of options. I could have said maybe we could have 7 or 8 tiny houses on the lot. I won't say that, but for heaven's sakes, folks, I'm not forgetting what SkyDev did to us the end of last July. We were 4 days away from the first public meeting that the past council had to discuss the Skydev development, to vote on it. They didn't have the common courtesy to let us do that. And that irritates me. That does not make a good corporation partner. Maybe some geared income housing on that property would kind of turn that around a bit. Just a suggestion. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Yuri.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I know, Rob, you want to respond to that, and I think just this, you'll answer my question as well. I just would like a little clarification on legality. Obviously, the $120,000 purchase price was put forward by Skydev. There's another offer on the table for 125. I'd just like clarification on legality about it's obviously a higher bid. Not that things get into a natural bidding war, but I would just like to know the responsibility of the municipality from a legal course to honor higher bids.
I can respond to that one first. As I said, the municipality's obligation is to ensure that we get the appraised price. So as long as it exceeds that, as I've noted in the report, and that will lead into the second thing, there are other very important considerations in disposal of land, and that relates to good planning and how the lands are planned out. From our perspective, and I'll start and maybe I'll get Rob, who is the director of planning, to elaborate a bit, but the consideration is there will need to be a second access point off of Fuller for the Skydev development, which is, we know, is an approved development. From a good planning perspective, it makes sense for that road allowance to be lined up with Bridge Street. We heard talk about the parking lot and lights from that. There's going to be a whole design exercise, and part of that design exercise is staff will be ensuring that through buffering, berming, that lights can be protected from shining into adjacent properties for parking areas. But unfortunately, you cannot do that for a road because it's coming right out to the road. So you cannot buffer from that. So this Bridge Street would be the ideal thing. I think I've stated in the report, if council is not wanting to sell it to Skydev, then I would strongly recommend we keep it as a road allowance and it be the road allowance because it is the most appropriate location for a lined up entrance into the property. Okay.
Through your worship, what I will add to that is that as further noting on what Rob just said about that intersection, if this is not where the proposed Skydev project gains access and creates that intersection where it's currently lined up with the right-of-way that exists, it will happen on either side of that. The design will be amended, and then we will have an intersection that is not optimally designed. The kinds of things that we try to avoid when we're thinking about how we design our road network. I will note, as the councillor's comments about building 4 units on that site, currently at the absolute minimum, construction costs are about $300 a square foot. 4 units, 4,800 square feet, $1.4 million to construct. Plus, then we would actually have to be a development firm to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just note that if that is something that council would like staff to provide some comments on, there is not a small price tag on trying to create 4 units in any site, let alone one that then creates some awkward issues with our road alignments and a neighboring proposal. Other than that, I will just note that typically when lands are made surplus, that particularly when it's road allowance, the policy typically is that, first bid goes to those that are directly connected to the site, right? That is just a standard practice. I'll just make note of that because that has not come up yet. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. Thank you, Harley. I'm sure if the neighbors don't want Skydev, they don't want guaranteed income across from them either. Okay? Having said that, I'm a firm believer and I hold hard on this in all due respect to the other people here. Whoever owns the big chunk of parcel should own this little chunk. I don't care if it's Skydev or Steve Bartley. It should be one parcel. And I have no intentions of selling it to an individual for green space. We've got too much green space in the municipality right now. We can't keep up. Having said that, I have done my math on it. And you can't compare a small parcel like that to the whole parcel or a 100-acre farm. You can compare it to the small lot that was sold beside it. And the price is per square foot is almost double what the other small lot got. I'm all for selling this 6,500 square feet to Skydev, but I think the price has to go up. It was not even close per square foot to the parcel beside it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm trying to draw on my memory and I'm wondering, Director Boyd, if it's possible, if you've got it at your fingertips, can we see the current suggested plan for the Skydev proposal on the screen? As we can't? Okay. Because
I have a drawing I can give you.
so what I'm wondering, and again, drawing on my memory, is there already an entrance at the end of, right? Thank you. Is there already an entrance? Yes, off of Boucher Street. And if there is, do they need the second entrance off of Bridge Street?
Through your worship, and perhaps if Matt will guide me, if this is incorrect. But right now there is what you're referring to is an application that showed a lot of information that was at the site plan level so that we could get the zoning that ended up going to the land tribunal. Technically, there is no site plan application before us in this manner, so there's still a lot to be decided. We would want to see more than one entrance for a variety of reasons, for the ability to move people by vehicle or active transportation, as well as fire access, etc. But the last thing I'll say is that from my perspective, this is perhaps where I get some guidance. The issue at hand right now is the potential sale of something that would be determined surplus and not the application on the lands around it. That application still needs to come forward, and that's something where we need to make a determination on. And beyond the generalities I've just stated, because the site plan is approved by staff, I'm not comfortable continuing on with a discussion where we're predisposing the decisions on that site plan on an issue that is not about that site plan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I'd agree with Rob. I'm actually just looking through the zoning bylaw that was provided to the municipality by the Ontario Land Tribunal, and it does not mention entrances in any way because this is about uses on the site, the bylaw. It's not about the site plan, as Rob says. But yes, I would be cautious about trying to completely tie the two things together. Site plan is something that is also appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal. And so if it was perceived that you were giving specific direction on that to staff when the Planning Act requires that staff are delegated the authority to do that, or you were going about trying to influence site plan in bad faith, then I would be worried that there could be an OLT issue with the site plan as well.
Rob, did you have a comment?
I'll speak to Councillor Bartley's question with regard to the amount. We do have options there. An appraisal was prepared by Colliers and provided to us. If council is not satisfied with the amount, and what I determined from the Colliers is they put all three together. Here's the amount we paid based on the acreage of all of them, and did the division on a per acre price. And like I said, it came up with that. We can get our own appraisal or ask them if they would base it on the other price. We can go back to them if council wants to provide that direction to staff.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So open road allowances are pretty interesting little critters. I thought that the township of Sydenham was the only one that had a whole lot of them on their graphs, but they seem to be woven throughout everywhere, our entire municipality. So earlier today, we had a presentation about Side Road 25 and unopened road allowance, what goes on there. We've got times past, we've had unopened road allowances where the municipality has said this is of no use to us. And I've seen where 4 farmers have come forward and they've all split a little bit of everything so they could increase their land. So what was that? That was the abutting landowner saying, I have interest in purchasing of that. We've had in the past too, where we've had an unopened road allowance where we have deemed that we as a municipality can keep as is. So today, with everything that's been on, I also was looking at the money, and on that subject of money, in the report, and we've had Kim Grafton come forward. And in the report, it says that there was an accompanying $10,000 deposit. No one has talked about that. What happened with that? Where is it? Did they get it returned? Was it not accepted? But they certainly said we've got some money to make our offer stand.
Through the mayor, the offer was we did receive the offer in a check form. The check was placed in the vault. It wasn't cashed because at that point in time, we didn't think it was fair because council went lame duck and we couldn't consider it at that point until the new council. So it was a check just placed in the vault and held at that point.
We're just sitting on their money. We have it in trust.
No, the check has not been cashed. The check was placed in the vault. Cashed.
But it's in a vault.
Yes.
We're sitting on their money.
Probably still dated.
No, yeah, there's been no acceptance of the so
okay. All right. So
are there other councillors wish to speak on this? Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So after reviewing the proposed actions for the purpose of cohesion and the development with the adjacent infrastructure, and considering what is in the best interest of the municipality as a whole, I do agree with Councillor Bartley that this parcel makes most sense as an addition to the owner of the connecting parcel, whether that is Skydev or anybody else. However, I do question the appraisal price of $120,000 as that does seem to be on the low side. So I feel like we should be looking at that. In regards to the watercourse parcel at the southeastern portion, I agree with staff that we should not be expending funds to acquire this piece of land as it does have no viable purpose.
Anyone else wish to speak again here? So, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I've heard a number of councillors talk about the price here. If you wanted to, or if a member of council wanted to propose that we move forward with this, but request a higher price, we would need an amendment to this motion to amend section 3 of the recommendation to say approve the conveyance of said lands to Skydev GP2 Inc. for whatever the value that the member of council proposing this would want it to be, because and the reason to do it that way is that then we could go to Skydev and say this is the price the council will accept, and if they will pay it, then we can just keep going. If they won't pay it, then we would obviously have to come back to council again. But as we talked about the last meeting, I don't want us to have lots of conversations about something and then get hung up because we haven't put an amendment on the table to actually do something.
One question I had was, what was the date of the evaluation by the professional firm?
I don't have that handy, but I anticipate that it was the beginning early last year, in
Early
2022.
last year.
Yes, that's when the request came.
Right, and so did that predate the sale of the last portion that they acquired, or didn't? It didn't. Okay. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. Now, I'm only going on my figures and they're not 100% correct. I don't know the exact square footage of the unopened road allowance. It doesn't come up on Grey County GIS exactly. Having said that, the way I figured it out is the offer is $18.46 a square foot. The property beside it got $36.58 a square foot. I would propose that the square footage of the unopened road allowance times 36.58 cents a square foot, if my figures are correct, is the figure we should ask for the piece of property going forward.
You're first, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would just like to disclose at this point in time, and thank you, Councillor Bartley, for bringing those figures forward, that is a benchmark, and it does reflect on the piece of property that I was involved in. And I did speak with the Integrity Commissioner this morning, and upon his advice, I do have his advisement to go forward. In speaking with this today, he has no issue because there is no fiduciary impact on me, that I do have the ability to speak to this today, and particularly in relation to those numbers. So I just wanted to clarify that for the public.
Rob?
Just to expand on the area of the parcel being considered, it's been identified as 0.16 acres. So 0.16 times 43,564 is 6,970 square feet. So if you wanted to do the rest of the math after that, I don't know if it helps you out.
How close I am on the parcel that's sold per square foot at $36.58.
Times 3.
It was 2.73 acres.
Yeah.
Which is,
oh, I can't do that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on a very subtly different square footage, because Rob did by acre to square foot and I did square meter to square foot. That's $254,752.27.
that's real close to what my figure was. And that would be the motion that I would bring forward.
So do we want to frame that?
So, Mr. Mayor, the motion I believe Councillor Bartley is putting forward will be to amend the motion to replace the phrase $120,000 in section 3 with $254,752, or some round number close to that. The Councillor Bartley not going to specify.
I think there's a general agreement around the table that is appropriate, that we be asking for more.
So we would need a seconder for this, Mr. Mayor, before we can go further.
Okay.
I'll second that, Your Worship, if I may make one more comment.
Yes, yes, and I'd like just a little more discussion when we have the residents of the area in the room. I'm hoping that we could help them understand how it is that council agreed to what we did. But go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Councillor Bartley for bringing forward a different number, which I think is reasonable under the circumstances. Although I do remember our municipality selling road allowances for something like $265. But that was a slightly different circumstance. I do want to go back to something though that Councillor Bartley said about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, about low rental units alongside more expensive units. I think if that's the mindset that this municipality gets into when it comes to talking about affordable housing, guaranteed income housing, I think that's a very dangerous road to go down.
Can you speak up a bit there?
Really,
closer? Yeah.
Really, sorry, Your Worship. We need to have a mix. Really, I've been waiting for Skydev in what is a very large development to incorporate what I consider and what a lot of people consider to be more affordable housing. I don't get the impression that's happening. And but I think in the future, when we do get into housing conversation, I hope we do. I really hope we don't get into a trend of saying, hey, we can't have a mix here. That's what this municipality is all about. Not all of us can afford $750,000 condos. We've got to have a mix, and there are only so many properties out there are going to be available. So we've got to be very careful about how we use any development going forward, and what kind of housing we're able to have on it.
Just to conclude, before we do this vote, I'd just like to say that the whole Skydev thing was a very disillusioning experience for me as a first-time councillor, and it was very frustrating that, and I felt especially bad that I didn't think that people had a chance to get answers to their questions, and I also felt that this council, like the previous council that was elected in 2018, did not have an opportunity to even debate what was before them. And but I don't think that people opposed to it have any conception of what the alternative might have led to for us. And that is that this municipality has been, trapped before in legal situations which were extremely costly to taxpayers. And I believe very sincerely that we avoided one of those situations, and we will also get some needed development and some needed housing. And it's not, it's far from perfect, but I supported what this council, it's mostly this council, except for the two new councillors. And I just want you to know that it was a very difficult decision for us, but I believe we had very good advice, and that we did the right thing. So I'm going to call a vote on the amendment. And do you want to can you state it there for us?
Through Mr. Mayor, yeah, just wanted to make very clear for council and for those watching that this vote is just to say whether you think the figure of 120,000 should be changed to 254,752. We'll come to the rest of the motion in a moment.
Okay. So all in favor? And that's carried.
Your Worship, can we have that recorded, please?
Sorry, a recorded vote on the amendment, Councillor Greenfield? Okay. So yes, we can do recorded votes immediately after a vote, should a member of council ask for that. So just to confirm again, this is an amendment to the motion to amend section 3 of the recommendation to replace 120,000 with 254,752. On a recorded vote, we always begin with the person who requested it. So Councillor Greenfield,
Yes.
Councillor Bartley,
Yes.
Councillor Bell, Councillor Forder,
Yes.
Councillor Urick,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Keaveney,
Yes.
Mayor Kentner.
Yes.
The vote carries 7-0. So, Mr. Mayor, with that having completed, your main motion has now been amended to replace the figure in number 3. So you can continue to debate the whole motion, or indeed we can take further amendments if anybody should wish to.
Does anyone wish further conversation? Then let's can we have a mover and seconder on the whole motion?
We do. We did that at the beginning. Yes.
Oh, so you just need a vote on it at this point?
If there's no further discussion,
Okay.
then yes, we're voting on the entirety of the motion. And this is, of course, in committee of the whole to go forward to council.
Yes. All in favor? Carried. Now, we can move right into the item B in the committee of the whole. We've got another couple beyond that, or do you want a brief recess? Pardon? Okay. I've had a request for a 10-minute recess, so I'm going to call. So I'll call us back to order, and we're in committee of the whole and now looking at the CAO's report 2023-02 Council Strategic Plan process. And we need a mover and seconder to put this on the table. Tony and Brandon, thank you. All in favor?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we don't vote all in favour for movers and seconders. The voting is to actually finish the matter.
Sorry.
So
Thank you. Thank you. So who wants to, now that it's on the table, wants to discuss this? Don't everybody speak at once. Yes, Tony?
Well, I'm glad, Mr. Mayor, that we do have a timeline that's been put forward for us, doing our strategic priority planning process. I think that in the last term, for a bunch of dynamic reasons, it did take, in my own mind, a long period of time in order for council to basically set forward the things that we believe in. And I like the idea of, I know that during the election campaign, I said about kind of having a public engagement, and Mr. Mayor, you said maybe doing a 100-day report. It kind of, if we can pull this together in a timeline, we can kind of marry that up so that we can get back to the general electorate and tell them what we believe in and how we accomplish this, because this is an important, it's a very important all-encompassing process that we're going to undertake. And the report says that it would be like to be led by our own Mr. Voigt, who did a good job as far as I'm concerned. From when I heard all the things about our official plan, he certainly knows how to engage with people and how to pull all of the comments together into a report. So I'm happy to see that we can do this internally and not have to go for hiring a consultant. That would just cost us more money and probably spend more time. And so I'm happy with this to move forward with this as it is written.
Councillor Marley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. I'm kind of on the same idea as Tony. The strategic binder that we got the last time takes up more room in my closet than any other binder I have. And I think each member of council should get a copy of it, take it home, have 1 week to read it, come back with changes. I don't see why we would need to change a piece of document that we spent hours and hours and hours on. If there's changes to be done, the council member can bring it forward and we can certainly talk about it. I just want to simplify it as quick as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So looking at these project cards, I have concerns that the timeline may make it difficult for council to complete the cards in a meaningful and complete way, considering we have the Roma conference this weekend. Perhaps staff could provide council with a clear understanding of the time commitment for this.
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'll take this one because my team's been kind of working on this. I'm going to try and pull one up, pull up the exact thing that I've got. The idea is that this isn't a time commitment. Like the principle behind it is to avoid having just a blanket title. Because I can imagine that most of council might want to talk about affordable housing, but just putting affordable housing on a plan doesn't do anything, because what does that mean? There's 100 different things that it could look at. So I can't find what it is that I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm trying to do this while I talk. So the idea is that we would just have a title, a brief one line on what the outcome would be, one line on why we want to do it, and then a guesstimate at the resources it would take for staff, money, and things like that. So, you know, if you've got ideas, and I assume most of you have because you campaigned on ideas, then I don't think this should take more than 10 minutes a card. You know, the idea is it's simple because we want to be able to put these on a wall. We want to be able to reproduce them for the public to be able to see them afterwards and so on. So no, like it's not a council report kind of level here.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, your worship. Through you to Mr. Smith. Matt, I haven't even got any cards yet, but I've already got over 10 projects. Are we restricted to 10? Would you recommend trying to break it down to 10? Because I do have over 10.
Thank you, Your Worship. And yeah, I've given considerable thought to this report and how we might go about it, thinking of how we've done strategic priorities in the past, and we have brought in facilitators to work with us, and that outside input I found really valuable and kind of got us, both of them got us really kind of thinking outside the box. So I appreciate this time things are different. First of all, I did speak to Savannah Myers, Director of Economic Development, Culture and Tourism at the county last week, because I was curious about the timeline and asked her, typically how long does it take a council in her experience to do strategic priorities? And she replied that, anywhere from 6 months to a year, that 6 months was pretty quick. So I looked at what we're doing here and thought, you're right, this is aggressive. And it's also really inclusive of public engagement, which is the first time since I've been on council that we've really gone to the public for input into this process. So I'm really pleased about that too. And recognizing, of course, that we've got a lot of really good comments to draw on from the official plan process and the communication survey and other things that we've done recently. So we've got a lot of good material here. So this should be just a really excellent exercise. So I guess out of all of that, my question to you, Director Voigt, is can you give us a little insight into how you see yourself, if I say moderating or facilitating or leading this exercise? Can you walk us through a little bit how you see yourself undertaking that?
Through your worship, I've done facilitation for various strategic plans for municipalities, for-profit organizations, nonprofits, community groups. One of the challenges that I've seen when I've been involved as a participant, quite frankly, is that, and there's a lot of reasons for it, and I won't get into the reasons, but a lot of times quite frankly, the external facilitator comes in and doesn't do much more than documenting every idea. And quite frankly, what you end up with is a lot of conflicting directions that you want to go left and right. And part of what makes something a strategic plan beyond just a list of ideas is that you have defined outcomes, you've got defined resources and responsibilities to get that done. And also, and I said outcomes, not outputs, two very different things. You can churn out a lot of outputs, but you need to be shooting for outcomes. And you also need to understand the items in terms of how they are interrelated. As council is well aware, and I think when the public get involved with this, they'll see that there's a lot of various types of projects that have to be done in a certain sequence because they're dependent upon each other, right? So if you have a list of things that you need to get done, you need to make sure that project number one is the first thing that needs to get done, as opposed to just, again, randomly assigning that. So a lot of this is, and to the other council comments in terms of, how many projects and that, and I think as Matt was saying, that let's make sure that we have a usable number, is because each one of these projects has to have staff and and many times budget allocations, the resources to get them done. So a lot of this is going to be how we sort these projects, how we see interrelationships, how multiple projects actually, you look at it and go, oh, those are the same thing, but they're different parts of it because they were kind of first best guess in the way they were described. And some of them actually become programs, which is multiple projects put together. And when you're looking at things that you want to get done as a council across 4 years, that quite often is the thing that we really need to focus on, is how are these things building upon each other and that we have the capacity to get them done. Again, with limited resources, financially, as well as staff resources, we want to make sure that we're not loading up that workload so it conflicts with what we have available to us. So all these things need to kind of be discussed. We also need across the table and with the public, some kind of checks and troubleshooting on what's being stated, because a lot of times the assumed outcomes maybe can't be done through that project, right? There's all these assumptions that we need to check. So all that will be part of the discussion. This will really be a hands-on kind of approach. Everyone and nobody in the room is the expert, right? Everyone's going to be putting in the information they know. We'll have some kind of rules to play by for the meetings. Some will be simple things like, you can't use the phrase yes, but it has to be yes, and, right? Little things to keep us in that forward thinking mindset, as well as the physical layout of the room, making sure that we are up and moving at times, that we all have the ability to comment openly, and that what's put on the floor is always open for discussion as a whole. The end result, though, really has to be not just a wish list of things that we'd like to see, but you have to have those resources and timelines allocated. That is where almost every strategic plan fails, because they are neither a plan nor strategic. They're just a list of ideas. And my style will be to facilitate that discussion and also to point out where, from my eyes, I see potential conflicts of ideas and bring that up, and then it can be resolved. Like, oh yeah, they are actually going in the same direction or not, or tweaking it. It's not just to be a glorified note taker and just assume that everything put out there somehow will work. So that's a kind of a rambling overview of a bunch of issues, but this is really going to be a hands-on thing. It doesn't need to be, it's challenging work, but it doesn't need to be difficult.
Yes.
Second question, if I may, Your Worship, to Director Voigt. Yeah, it is going to be work, but I think we'll also, it's a good exercise for building fellowship amongst us as well, between staff and council. And I think now that we've established that we're going forward with the Heritage and EDAC committees, that's good. But my question is in relation to the other advisory committees, assuming that we do have the final document ready for May 1st. When thereafter, and perhaps this is to Matt or Rob as well, do you see us being, whatever committees we decide upon through this exercise, when do you see us then going to the public for the application process and getting these committees up and running? Do you think by September, or what's your best guess?
I'll go first. Yeah. I think September is a good timeline. It really depends on the outcome of your strategic process, because if the strategic plan specifies what committees you want there and then I can start, and we do approve it on May 1st, I can start advertising immediately. If it still is, we need to come back to a future council meeting after that to give you more options, which is currently what the direction that you've passed today says. Then obviously that takes a little bit of time, because we'll need to reflect on the strategic plan before we can bring back that report. And then obviously we generally don't have meetings towards the end of July and in August, and we have to do an application cycle and things. So I would think September's a likely time.
And through your worship, I'll just, as the question was directed to me, I'll add a couple points. The one thing that I think we should be discussing at that time is also accepting and understanding that those persons that volunteer to be on committees, that our perspective of them is that they are should be managed and understood because the value they bring to the table as just as important as let's say, unpaid staff, right? They sometimes we look at volunteers as just something that we can kind of, well, we'll always get another one, or what, that the people will always come up and want to help. We need to respect in terms of the efforts they're putting in. And with that, we also need to make sure, the same way you would with any group of people that you're bringing together to do work, is that you have to headhunt and find the right people for the skill sets necessary to undertake that work. Availability is not a skill, right? We need to make sure we have the right kinds of people doing the right kinds of things. And also I would, we'll probably bring this up during those discussions, that's something to think about, is what is the role of the advisory committees? I think you can make many different arguments. I'll throw out two out there. One perspective might be that they are experts in a particular area, subject matter wise, or that they are the voice of the community and are representative of the community in small form, right? If you do the second one, like I was just mentioning, you might have a policy that says every committee should have a youth member on it, for example, because it's supposed to be a small scale version of the community. Or if it's an expert committee that deals with something that is about building things and engineering, then you'd want those kinds of people with that expertise on there. Two very different perspectives, and that's the kind of thing that we would be bringing up to help us guide that, so we can do it as quick as is laid out in the report.
If I may speak to that, I think that all of us are pretty clear on the fact that not every committee is going to look the same. There are different committees for different purposes, and we need to recruit and to frame their terms of reference specifically for the job. And it's our hope to, keep the number of these down, but at the same time to take advantage of that capacity in the community to help us, move faster and more strategically. So, Councillor Uhrig.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just so I'm clear, seems to be two different conversations going on there, because 0.02 is about strategic, 0.03 is about committees, and we seem to be kind of talking a lot about committees in there. So I just wanted to first on 0.02 with the strategic, I echo Mr. Bartley's thoughts about. It just seems to me it's so logical. It should go through House. Saving $30,000 on something, and like to your point, most of that money is going to be getting him up to speed on our processes and what's going to happen. So if we've got the skill in house to do it, it makes more sense to me that we enlist our own talent.
More comments, or we're ready to vote? Okay, seeing none, now I'm going to call the motion. All in favor? Thank you. And item C, previous council directions. This is a long one to read, and I think most people are familiar with what we're doing here. So I suggest we just work down the list. It's a recommendation that Committee of the Whole recommend that council, in the first case, remove the following council directions, and there are 4 of them here. So let's start with item A, anti-racism. Would you like to speak to that, Shirley, at all?
Thank you, Your Worship. That was my motion, and I do, after conversation with staff and understanding in the report, the suggestion of moving any discussion related to anti-racism into the community safety and well-being plan. I'm comfortable with that rolling into to that plan.
Item B is, any further discussion then of that? Okay, item B.
For you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just interject. This is a really long list, and we do have quite a few other things on there. I wonder if it might be easier if members of council brought up ones they think are in the wrong pot, and then we can propose amendments to move them if they wish.
So is there any others under removing council decisions that you want, Councillor Bartley?
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. Just a point of clarification. C, Meaford Harbor cleanup. If we take it out, does that mean if the harbor gets messed up again, we got to bring it back? Because I think there's stuff in the harbor as we speak.
Yeah.
Three, Mr. Mayor, no. So removing, I think it's really important that we clarify that removing something from the council directions list doesn't stop the resolution from having existed. So removing the anti-racism motion from the list doesn't mean that council suddenly says we don't believe in anti-racism. That still exists. That had a motion passed. So the one for the harbour, we go in and clean every year where necessary, and we would continue to do so. I think what the reason why this one got tangled up on the list for so long is because it asks for a policy, and really there isn't really a policy to be written. We just go and take it out when we need to take it out, and so we felt that there wasn't a need to keep it on there, because you all know I love policy, but I also don't think we need them for absolutely everything when it's a pretty simple thing.
Okay, thank you. So if council deems it necessary to clean out the harbor, we have to hound you to get it cleaned out, correct?
Correct.
Give me a call if you think it needs doing. Yes.
Thank you.
So we've dealt with everything under removal. The second group is prioritizing council directions, and there's only two of them. So what kind of priority are you talking about here, Matt?
Speak to that. We believe these are, council is telling, if they stay as the two, or if any other get added, these will be the ones that you want us to prioritize and work on immediately. So we've got the Meaford Community Gardens. We know they're looking for another site. Council's directed us to work with them, so that will stay a priority because they're going to lose their site. And the dedicated tax increase for affordable housing, it's because it was directed to be part of this year's budget. So that's why it's a priority for those two, or any other ones in 3 that council wants to move up to 2.
I'd like to recommend that items C and 3 be moved up in priority, short-term accommodation rentals.
So because you're in the chair, Mr. Mayor, you can't move that, or you could step out of the chair, or you could ask if anybody else would move and second it.
I'll ask if anybody else would look at it here.
Yes, I'll take that role, your worship, and certainly support that. I mean, even though I wasn't necessarily on the campaign trail, I certainly heard loud and clear that that was the number one concern during the election timeframe was short-term accommodations. And we did have that excellent report from Mr. Foster a short while ago. So I think this is first and foremost on many people's minds, and it should be moved as a priority under council directions.
Councillor Urick.
Thank you, your worship, through you. I also would retain request for electric vehicle charging station policy. Again, this is becoming more and more prevalent. I know there were concerns about cost in the past. The conversation with Mr. Armstrong last week where he said there are companies out there will actually absorb the cost of putting it in for per use. So we just need to really kind of get that moving, because I think we're one of the few communities in the area now that don't actually have a charging station. And if we're going to be part of the future, we need to adopt these things sooner than later.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think could we deal with these two as two separate things? So I think Deputy Mayor Keaveney's got one on the table to move the short-term accommodation rentals from bucket 3 to bucket 2. If we could have a seconder of that and then a vote on it, and then we'll come back to Councillor Urig's one for request for electric vehicle charging station policy.
Okay, so the seconded. Okay, all in favor? And do you want to move yours, Rob?
Kind of did.
Yeah. And so then we just need a seconder for that, and then we can move on.
Seconded by Councillor Forder. All in favor? Any others? Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, your worship. I'm wondering about item L, the special events licensing bylaw. I'm not sure just what all that would include, but we have rumors that perhaps our municipality will be involved in more special events and festivals in the future. And I guess I'm also thinking about the sesquicentennial anniversary next year. To me, that's a special event, and hopefully there are some celebrations concerning that. So it's just my opinion. I don't know if I'll get a second or not, but I'm going to bring that forward.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, that one sits with me. My team are working on this right now. It probably won't look like a licensing bylaw. It's more about a special events process and policy work, and trying to do some things to improve our website and improve the documentation we can give to groups to help them understand how to do an event and what the municipality needs for those events. So we are working on it, but I think we've just left it in the keep bucket because I can't give you a timeline, whereas the ones we put in the retain, the ones we put in the priority, we're really trying to move pretty quickly on.
Were there any items in the list under 3 that you think could be removed from council directions? Okay, so have we voted on everything that we haven't voted on special events licensing? Oh, no motion. Okay. Well, then it looks like we've exhausted our input on this. And does that allow you guys to take this back? Do you just want us to pass it as amended?
So now we're having moved those 2 items from bucket 3 to bucket 2. Council needs to vote on the overall motion.
Okay, so I guess the motion is to approve this recommendation as amended. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, moved and seconded by Shirley and Rob. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Item D is the post-election report from Community Services, which we've all read with interest. We're just receiving that for information purposes.
Yes, we still need to move and seconder to get it on the table, and then any discussion before a vote.
So mover and seconder, Councillor Bartley, Councillor Forder. Any discussion? Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kenner. Just a comment. Looking at this, internet and telephone produce the highest turnout on several of the different municipalities. Just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I'd just like to take a second and to commend staff on their well-executed efforts throughout the duration of the recent municipal election. Communication to the public was clear and accessible, and voting process was executed very smoothly. And as a new councillor, this was my first opportunity to see how the voting process works from behind the scenes. And I must say the coordination and the cohesion required to pull this off was nothing short of impressive. You guys all did a wonderful job, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks again. Thanks very much for this report, and I want to thank staff for their efforts. I think you did an amazing job getting the word out there and encouraging people to come forward, making it relatively very easy to vote one way or the other. And I want to congratulate you on your efforts. You did a great job. Disappointing numbers as far as I'm concerned. We had about I guess about 4,000 people voted. Kind of interesting. There was 2,800 watched the results on YouTube. I just wonder how many of them had actually voted. Or I know we can't get that number, but that would be interesting.
Through you, Ms. Mayor, I do think that number's a little false, because I know that lots of people were checking periodically to make sure that the votes weren't coming. So every time you logged in, it would add you as another person. So I know, for instance, my wife looked at it about 25 times to try and find out when I was coming home.
Clarifying that one.
Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Your worship, thank you. And I too want to express my appreciation to staff. And I well remember walking into the community center at a late hour and saw, was it 26 mad heads down? Everybody just working so hard to get that count accomplished. So it was an incredible day and staff worked so hard. So we do appreciate that. One question for you though, Matt. I know there was a large number of people not registered. Do we think that'll sort itself out with the next impact assessment, or do you have any thoughts on how that could be improved?
I'm really hopeful on this one. As of I think June the 1st this year, Elections Ontario is responsible for the municipal voters list as well as the provincial voters list. So obviously we are scheduled to have a provincial election a couple of months before the municipal election in 2026. That can obviously change, but that will mean that their list is pretty up to date, and then that should be able to filter down to us because they'll use their data. They'll also get the data from MPAC for property owners who aren't resident in the municipality, because of course those folks aren't eligible to vote in a general election. But I think that there is a much better chance that it's right, and a much better chance that we will be able to understand things like, I think it might have happened to a couple of you as well, like kids at home who left home 10 years ago. The tax data can't possibly know that. Elections Ontario knows that because those people are registered somewhere else instead. So I'm hopeful.
Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, very small point. Just wondering why it was at the community center and not Meaford Hall. Seemed to be a much more conducive environment for it and less echoey and just a little more formal. But
pretty simple one actually, in that Meaford Hall is not big enough to have got the number of people counting that we wanted to have counting, and selfishly I didn't want to do one thing at the arena and then have to run to Meaford Hall to tell you all what was happening, so that's why I think definitely one of the things that we'll take into account, and that of course depends on what this council decides in 18 months, 2 years time about what method of election we want to do next time, because those of you who were on the ballot in 2018 will remember that it's very anticlimactic when you do it on internet and telephone, and I press a button and it's there. So we obviously don't need as much space then, and did do it at Meaford Hall that year.
Moving on, did we vote to accept that?
We now need a vote with the discussion finished, yes.
All in favor? Thank you, carried. Item E is the provision of cleaning services, and the recommendation that the Committee of the Whole direct staff to include the costs of in-house cleaning services in the draft 2023 operating budget, and to recommend Council of the Municipality of Meaford approve the replacement of contracted cleaning services with in-house cleaning services. So this has come full circle, as I fully expected it would, and I think that put it on the floor. Or we guess we need moved by Rob Yerrick, seconded by Councillor Greenfield to put it on the table. So discussion. Rob.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, it's interesting because having just attended first Grey Sauble Conservation Authorities meeting, they're doing something exactly the same. It's labor is difficult, obviously, as we know. Cleaning services costs are skyrocketing, so this is just becoming more and more difficult. It's not a Meaford problem, it's a general problem as per usual. So I'm not surprised that this is on the table as presented.
Any other comments? Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner, and I'm probably putting my foot where it shouldn't be. And I don't. Water and wastewater. Is it a physical job running the wastewater and water, or is it mostly monitoring the plant? I was wondering why they couldn't do their own cleaning, or am I got the job completely wrong?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Funny you should ask that, because currently that is the case. The water and wastewater plants are cleaned by staff, but it does take time away from them actually doing their jobs, because it is a very in-person demanding position to be. It's not just monitoring, like they're out doing rounds, they're all of the things that need to be looked at, all the way to Leith. There's a lot going on, and right now they are doing that themselves. So we are actually hoping to flip it so that it would be included in the cleaning contract so that they weren't having to do that themselves.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, Councillor Greenfield.
Well, on that subject, we're talking about $9,600 per annum. Is this a weekly cleaning we're looking at, or as needed, or
So the levels of service for cleaning are different in different buildings, predominantly around whether they're public or private. I think the water and wastewater ones, that estimate is based on twice a week for 1.5 hours at each plant. So, you know, when you think of the size of some of these buildings, to sweep and mop some floors and clean bathrooms and all that sort of stuff, 1.5 hours isn't, for one person, isn't a huge amount of time. One of the things that can be different as we talk about this, and actually Tori and I were having this conversation just the other day, is that, you know, we can choose to have different levels of service. Our cleaning levels did increase in many ways during COVID because we really had to. At one point, cleaners were coming into admin offices every day. They're not doing that anymore, but they are coming in, I think, 3 times a week now. So, you know, we can do different things. And obviously that has an effect on the price. Having it in-house means we can be more flexible on that sort of thing, because we can adapt to things more easily. Whereas obviously if you're tied into a contract, you can't reduce hours, and sometimes it's quite hard to increase hours too.
Other comments, or Councillor Bartley?
Again, probably speaking out of turn. Can you tell me, in the budget that we haven't seen yet, what you've put in for the budget for this?
So right now, as of today, these costs are in that budget. But if you tell me the proposed, what's in this report, but if council votes against this today, those costs will come out. We'll put in contracted services, and we'll cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So read the report, obviously, like everyone else, and it talks about 3,200 hours for cleaning. And it said there was a full-time person, a full-time employee, a couple of thousand hours a year, 1,900. And with the pay grade that's listed, and it said to clean the water plant, I was looking at an extra $9,600. My number came out at 73,600, and what's reported to be put in the budget is 93. So I have a difference.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're taking the salary figure and using that as your count, whereas we have to have taxes and EI and employer health tax and benefits and so on, and for these folks. So generally you have to add on somewhere in the region of 35% to an hourly wage to get the actual cost.
So I think we're done around the table, and I just sum up by saying I think we'll have a much cleaner municipality doing it ourselves than contracting it out, and that I hope that you know, we keep it under control financially. But I think it's I think we'd be setting ourselves up if we didn't do this for something similar to what happened with grass cutting last year. So. So we need a vote. I guess the motion is to do this. So all in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Item F is combined transportation and parks committees. The recommendation that committee of the whole direct staff to replace 3 existing seasonal transportation operations positions and 3 existing seasonal parks and facility attendant positions with 3 full-time combined positions in the draft 2023 operating budget. Somebody move that to open discussion. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Uhrig, who would like to speak. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just lost part of my microphone, but anyway, I'm sure it'll still work. I'm just curious in this. I understand the reasoning for going to full-time persons. That makes total sense to me. The suggestion is that the winter operators are each paid at grade 5 and the grass cutters are paid at grade 1. So I'm just curious to know why we take the whole 3 positions to grade 5, why we wouldn't kind of average that all out at a grade 3, for example.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's because the job evaluation process isn't about averages. The job evaluation process is about the role that you have to perform. And things like requiring a DZ license means that that's a qualification that not everybody has. And so that means that we have to pay that at a higher rate. Once we've got somebody in post, we have to pay at the higher rate of the 2 because that's the requirement for them to be able to do that job year round. There is a big advantage to that in that grade 5 is also where parks and facility operators, regular full-time staff are. So that means that these staff will be able to perform a lot of those type of duties rather than just being grass cutters. It will give our parks and facilities team much more flexibility with their staff and enable these full-time roles to more adequately cover for vacations and so on.
Sorry, Your Worship, a follow-up if I may. So do we have 3 persons or will we be going out to recruit people?
So we will be going out to recruit.
Out to recruit. Okay. And that then will solve our issues because I know we've always been short for snow plowing drivers. So this will solve those issues.
Solve is a really big word. It will certainly help.
Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to follow along the line slightly with the Deputy Mayor about the pay grade. As it's written today, I would like to say that I would like to keep things status quo. Paying someone at pay grade 5 to cut the grass, I will not vote in favor of doing that. I think that when we have an opportunity, as it was in the report about college and university students, yes, it was said that it's tough to get them. But if we advertise in the university and colleges for a position to do this in the summer with our ratepayers who have their ones that they're in charge of with their children or so on, that they have an opportunity to have a nice job in the summer to cut grass. We bought our own equipment. And I'd like to see that opportunity to continue. The snowplow operators in the wintertime, it was in the report that there are personnel who over the course of their life have looked forward in a sense to actually being a snowplow operator in a seasonal aspect. So today in my seat, I would like to just see it. I won't be voting in favor of this because of the pure cost to cut grass. I think that as a snowplow operator, in the wintertime personnel with their skill sets, I think that we'd like to just see it be status quo. And I read the report about how difficult it is to get personnel. Every business is in that, trying to find people to do the jobs. But I just can't see myself voting in favor of a pay grade 5 cutting grass.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to let Jess in a moment talk about the struggle to recruit winter seasonals. But what I should say on the job evaluation front is that we would, of course, develop a job description for these roles and send that to the person that does our job evaluations independently. And they may say it's not a grade 5, but we have to budget something. So we've budgeted it at that level. The other thing that I'd say, just in terms of Councillor Bell's comments about grass cutting, is that obviously, yes, part of this will be cutting grass. Part of it will be the other parks work, but the additional cost here does come with a total of, I think it was around 1,800 extra hours. So that enables, particularly in the shoulder seasons, more work to be done. I know that council's previously asked many times, especially as our seasons change, about what we can be doing to get our parks sort of spruced up and open earlier in the season. Well, right now we can't because the guys are in the arena keeping ice going until April, when sometimes we want to be out in the parks by then. these roles would potentially allow us to do that a bit more. So part of the additional cost is additional time as well. It's not just about paying people more.
Other comments? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. Through you, Mr. Chair, I think as everyone said, there's a lot of challenges with retaining and obtaining staff in general in today's workforce. Since I've been here, I don't think we've had a full seasonal complement yet. So we currently don't. We're not alone in that. Our friends at the region or the county are the same way. A lot of our neighbors are the same way. We do have great seasonal staff now, and some, like you say, enjoy the flexibility of farming or whatever it might be in the summertime and then plowing in the winter. And we're very fortunate for that. It's the others that we don't necessarily want to lose. When we're hiring great people on contract through the winter, they're obviously looking for full-time work. So quite often people are going to take a full-time job once they're done with us, and then we don't have them anymore. So that's part of the reason why we struggle to keep good people working here, is just that they're looking for this type of opportunity where they have seasonal work all year round. So I really do see the benefit to this type of position for that reason, that we could retain these folks through the whole year.
I certainly, sorry, did somebody have a, oh.
Rod would like to come and join us because he'll talk about how we can get summer stuff.
Well, through the mayor, thanks very much. I was sure glad I got to speak today. I thought I was going to sit back in the corner and watch all day. So listen, Councilor Bell, I completely understand what you're saying. We talk about getting university kids, high school kids, university kids to come and cut grass. It's awesome. It works out fine when we start cutting grass in May because they're done in April. The problem is they go back to school, the end of August. So that is leaving us as a department short from September and October, when the majority of our special events are going on, scarecrow invasion and stuff like that. And then we're also trying to open up other facilities such as the arena, and we're working on closing other facilities. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that we do lose these students usually the end of August, 1st September.
And one last comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bartley asked for the last item about what's currently in the budget. This recommendation, if council passes it today, says put this in the budget. So in the numbers in my computer system, it is already in there, but we can take it out. If you get to the stage of doing the budget and you decide that this isn't a good approach because of you want to save some money for various different reasons, then it can be taken out again at that stage. This is, in effect, we've kind of done these couple of reports, including the next one as well, almost like the enhancement reports that you used to see at the end of the budget. You used to see them at the end, and then it was suddenly a whole bunch of money extra beyond what you thought it was going to be. Whereas this way, we can put it in to start with, and then you can see sort of the max level. So if you go forward with it, it'll be in there, and then you'll still have the chance to say no later if you'd like to. But if you say no now, we'll just take it out and we'll continue with seasonal people.
The problem that I have with this, if nobody else has a comment at this point, is that what we are doing is we're impacting the budget before we've had our budget discussions. And I think that that's my main concern with both of these. I think we're between a rock and a hard place on the cleaning services, but I think we have, some scope to think about the second proposal.
So I think that's my point is what we're saying. We're trying to get stuff into the budget so you get a solid number immediately. Whereas if we came with a number that says 5% and council talks about that and says thinks it looks great, and then we say later that we need an extra $65,000 and that's 0.5% on top, I think that's harder. So nothing, if you approve this today, it doesn't commit council to anything beyond seeing it included in a budget, so you get a full picture.
Are you saying that we won't hire these 3 full-time people until after the budget is struck?
Oh, definitely not. No.
Okay.
For one thing, we have winter seasonals already under contract, so they will be here till April anyway. But no, this is to put something in the budget so that you have a full number to start with. There is no commitment here.
Deputy Reid.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just a question, I'm sure I know the answer, but just for confirmation. So with the assumption that we'll go forward with our wonderful new HR person in place, Sarah, thank you, and be able to hire these 3 positions, we have all the equipment we need for these 3 positions to go forward for plowing and the grass cutting and whatever else they may need to undertake.
Yes, because these positions are replacing things that already exist. So the person who's currently a seasonal person sitting in a snowplow would now just be a full-time person sitting in a snowplow.
We won't be asked for additional lawnmowers or anything of that nature.
No, we bought all the lawnmower equipment last year when we had to bring that back in-house, and council made that decision at that time. So again, yeah, this is really just a proposal to try and make it easier for us to recruit and retain staff at the same staffing levels as we currently have.
Any further discussion? You ready for the vote? Oh, sorry, Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. I do have one more question. The 3 winter equipment operators, I don't have any objection to the coming in at the grade 5 level. I mean, these folks are going to be running $350,000 trucks, and maybe even an occasion will be more expensive grader if the snowbanks get too huge. But is the addition of these permanent operators, what I'm concerned about is this going to cut down on overtime hours? That's to me, that's that's a variable here, and I'm hoping we can look to spreading out the work assignments and reducing in overtime hours.
Our guess is yes, because the overtime that's being accrued over the winter in particular can be offset by some of those additional hours by making these full-time 80-hour positions, whereas right now they add up to something like 1,400 hours. So we hope that means that time could then be offset in lieu, and so on. But we haven't sort of put that in here as a specific, because until we see what happens, and obviously our winter operators in particular are allowed to accrue overtime and ask for payouts, particularly depending on how much they work during busy seasons. So it may not, but it's actually not huge amounts in the grand scheme of things, the whole overtime budget for seasonal staff.
You ready for the question? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. The last report here is Operation Services, Residential Expanded Polystyrene or Styrofoam, the recycling program update. And the recommendation is that Committee of the Whole recommend Council direct staff to include the expanded polyester recycling program in the 2023 operating budget. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Greenfield, seconded by Councillor Forder. Discussion. Anybody have a comment on this? Councillor Forder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. My recommendation is that we continue with the year-round styrofoam recycling program. I feel that the positive impact on our environment in this regard is substantial and is at a relatively low cost. I guess the bottom line is that protecting our environment is not always free, and there is going to be a cost associated with creating a more sustainable and a more greener community. And those are just my comments on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Others want to speak to this? Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I was thinking about just the seasonal gathering collection, but then I got thinking with the popularity of various electronic devices, which many come in a big box with styrofoam around them around Christmas time. That's usually a heavy time for volume. So maybe sticking with the year round, it's as Councillor Forder says, hey, this is an environmental issue, and this is something that yes, there's a cost to it, but there's also a cost to not collecting this material. So I'm okay with going with the yearly pickup.
Do we need a motion or like an amendment to make it year round or not?
I think the plan was seasonal, so yes, we'd like an amendment to do year round, yes.
So does, do you want to move and second that then?
So the amendment will be that the motion be amended to insert the word year round before expanded. So it will be direct staff to include the year round expanded polystyrene recycling program in the 2023 operating budget.
And the difference between the two options, it's 4188 a year round, and seasonal 2608. Okay, so roughly double. You ready to vote on this? No further comment. All in favor of the motion, I guess, to the amendment. All in favor of the amendment. It's carried. And let's vote on the motion. All in favor. And that is carried as well. Thank you. Excellent. And I think I'm going to adhere to tradition and defer to Councillor Greenfield to tell us about the building report for December. Councillor Greenfield.
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship, and I'd be glad to do this, but in the future, I want council to know I don't have any franchise on this recording. I'd be glad to do this this 2022 wrap up. It's over $61 million in permits, which I think is quite a credible sum. We're all quite aware of the inflation, which certainly hit building materials and to a degree wages in 2022. 35 new homes permits, and the overall amount on those permits, almost $38 million. So there were some pretty respectable homes built. Where we did fall down was rentals and additions, 8.3 million. It's still a reasonable sum, and multi-residential. We're down, ag buildings 2.4 million. So if you look back year end in 2021, we had 3.32. Excuse me. The numbers are considerably up, and I'm sorry about that, but no, I think overall a very good report, and we'll look forward to better things in 23. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Moving on in the agenda, I guess we need to move out of, we have committee reports. So County Council, Deputy Mayor Keaveney.
Thank you, Your Worship. Grey County Council met at the call of Warden Milne for our first meeting of 2023 last Thursday, January the 12th. It was a pleasure to have alternate councillor Steve Bartley sitting beside me, as unfortunately Mayor Kentner couldn't attend. An early highlight of the meeting was a presentation to 6 paramedics for their exemplary service, and there were 3 others who weren't in attendance, so 9 overall. 2 of these paramedics have served for over 40 years, and recognition was voiced for the dedication of the group to additional duties during the pandemic. And I can tell you our Grey County paramedics did a fantastic job. A slideshow was presented by staff which demonstrated the efforts of county staff going above and beyond during the Christmas storm. And this was everything from the roads crew to long-term care, housing. A number of people really stepped up during that Christmas storm, as they did here locally that we discussed earlier. A standing ovation by council demonstrated our appreciation to the employees of Grey County. Next came a presentation by Herb Shields from TC Energy, which provided council an update on the project. Mr. Shields spoke to the commitment of TC to provide as many community benefits as possible to the municipality of Meaford, should approvals be granted for the pump storage facility. He also suggested that there are opportunities for each of the lower tiers and for the county overall as things go forward. There will soon be another economic impact report released, which will outline benefits across Grey and Bruce counties. Herb reassured members of County Council that all infrastructure suffering from wear and tear because of site construction would be fully restored. A delegation was presented by Eat Local Grey Bruce, which is located right beside Pet Connection in the SCP Center here in Meaford. This not-for-profit collective, which serves over 50 suppliers and over 900 eaters, as they call them, is in financial stress. The request to the county was for $20,000 plus a subsidy to cover their $5,000 monthly rent. We've made no decisions on that, but we will consider the asks at our next meeting. The 2023 Grey County budget overview was presented. Assessment growth in 2022 was $1,591,700. Taking this amount from the original staff prepared budget left the initial request for increase to the tax levy at 3.66%. With the budget as presented, $69.4 million will need to be raised through taxation. This request is inclusive of a 2% raise for non-unionized staff. Inflation has had a significant impact on insurance premiums and asset management costs in particular. The budget is also inclusive of 1%, which for the county is $669,400 for housing initiatives, affordable housing that is, 1.5% for asset management and 0.75% for healthcare initiatives. As Steve will speak to, I'm sure there was considerable discussion about this budget and the starting point of 3.66%, which many of us felt was a bit high for the county. Much deliberation took place, and it was suggested that the budget go back to staff and that they return to us with a reduction of $1.45 million to accomplish taking the proposed budget down to a 2.33 increase. At our next budget session, we will see a list of the items removed by staff, and council will determine if we are comfortable with the newly presented draft. And Steve, budget is your bailiwick, so I'm going to turn that over to you if you want to add anything from that discussion.
Thank you. And through you, the mayor, it was a sheer pleasure to sit in the chair. It's a big chair you've got there, boss. I was treated very warmly by county council, and I opened up with, I'm the alternate. This will be likely the only day I'm here in the next 4 years, so I should shut up, but I could not. I did participate in several of them, including the budget, and I was very warmly received, and I think they're going in the right direction. And I did it all without embarrassing myself or the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe there are any other boards or committees to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Yard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yes, Councillor Bell and myself attended the first Grey Sawmill Conservation Authority board meeting on December 21st. The meeting started with introductions of the GSCA staff, new board members that have been selected as designated participants by the municipalities, and existing members that are representing those municipalities that have not yet completed their committee selections. With apologies to Mr. Greenfield, who knew all this, but it was followed by an overview of the GSCA structure, mandate, accomplishments, and objectives, which I found interesting. And for those who didn't know, GSCA is one of 36 conservation authorities throughout Ontario, which collectively are the second largest landowner in the province. They complete 32,000 planning and permit reviews annually, manage over 3.8 billion worth of flood control and prevention infrastructure, protect lives and prevent more than $150 million per year in flood damages and disruption, work with landowners to plant over 1.3 million trees annually, and offer 3,500 kilometers worth of trail for people to enjoy, hosting almost 10 million visitors annually. Locally, the GSCA is made up of 8 member municipalities: Erin, Elderslie, Blue Mountains, Chatsworth, Georgian Bluffs, Grey Highlands, Meaford, Owen Sound, and South Bruce Peninsula. Has 11 board members, all elected officials, over 3,100 square kilometers, over 155 kilometers of shoreline, employs 28 full and part-time staff plus seasonal staff, and has a $4 million annual budget. They own and operate own and managed lands, including 270 properties in 80 groupings, 29,000 acres, 172 kilometers of trail to explore 4 major waterfalls, 300,000 visitors per year, 72 million per year in ecosystem services, as well as managing Grey County's forests and trails. Finally, they provide a series of essential services, including drinking water source protection, watershed stewardship and monitoring, and GIS mapping and data management. In the 2022 budget year, the municipal levy accounted for approximately 45% of the total budgeted revenue. Transfer payments from the province for drinking water source protection and natural hazard management accounted for approximately 7%. The remaining 48% was derived from other sources, including self-generated revenues, grants, agreements, and reserves. In the 2023 budget year, municipal levy is proposed to account for approximately 41% of the total budgeted revenue. Transfer payments from the province for drinking water source protection and natural hazards will account for approximately 6%, and the remaining 53% will be derived from other sources, including self-generated revenues, grants, agreements, and reserves. So the upshot is, although several mandatory cost increases associated with salary, OMERS, WSIP, CPP, and insurance have gone up by more than $130,000 within their operating budget, they've managed to keep the total operating levy expense increased to $45,000 or 2.99% over 2022. On the capital side, they're proposing a levy increase of $38,700 to bring the total annual capital levy contribution to $80,000. That's an increase of $41,300 in 2022. This increase in the capital budget is necessary to assist them in meeting its capital renewal needs. Meaford's proposed levy for 2023 is $220,546, an increase of $10,580 or 4.99%. The budget was accepted as presented and forwarded to the municipalities for approval. As with most provincially affected organizations, there was much discussion regarding the potential negative impact of bills 229 and 23, and they have forwarded correspondence expressing its concerns to the Premier and other pertinent governmental agencies. There will not be a January meeting, and the February meeting will include the GSCA AGM board orientation and the 2023 budget vote. Thank you.
You didn't have to set a world record.
It's getting 4:24 and I'm sure everybody's just.
Thank you. Ready for a motion to move out of committee of the whole? Mover and seconder. Mover is the deputy mayor, then Councillor Ford is all in favor. And thank you. Now we're moving into councillor motions. First of all, is there any notice of motion today? I see none. So we have a motion for decision today, and Councillor Porter, I'll turn it over to you to explain this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I had a chance to speak to a bunch of people in the municipality that are struggling with the non-resident fees as it pertains to youth and adult sports. Of course, the cost of living is increased for everybody, and this is becoming an increasing problem for these individuals. So in short, my recommendation is that we don't make any changes other than the fact that we're just going to be increasing the cutoffs for the low-income cutoff from $40,000 for children to $60,000, and then also for adults going from $20,000 to $30,000.
We need a seconder for your motion, seconded by Councillor Heurig. Questions? I have a question. Do you think that this is going to help the families that are struggling with the cost at this point? Is this sufficient to make a difference for them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know exactly what level of increase is going to satisfy the greatest number of people. This seems to satisfy the folks that I have been talking to. Of course, I can't account for the people that are struggling that I haven't been able to hear from. But with the information that I have, this seems like this is the sort of that sweet spot. However, I'm not firm on these numbers. If any other councillor has any other recommendations, I'm certainly receptive to that.
Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think Councillor Forder's numbers are quite realistic in today's world. I'm just wondering if, well, ask Mr. Smith or Mr. Armstrong, the past few years, this system we have had with the levels we've had have, I think worked out fairly well. I think better maybe than the former system that we have. Do you have any idea what we contributed in 2022 to these programs?
We allocated $25,000 to the child and youth program and $5,000 to the adult program. We haven't spent that much. I don't know the figures specifically for 2022. We haven't hit the maximum in any of the 3 years we've been doing this, though, of course, mostly that's to do with COVID. That money's been set aside so that it can be used if we go over the budget in this year or next. And I think that will give us a bit of an indication about whether these changes have a major effect, because if these changes go through, then obviously more people will be eligible. The other thing I wouldn't mind pointing out, if I can take the liberty, is that, of course, these figures are on top of LICO, the low income cutoff. That does change every year with inflation. And so the current LICO for 2021, because that's the most recent figures I can find very quickly, is 26,426 for one person in a family unit, 32,898 for two people, and 40,444 for three people. So if you're a married couple with one child or a single parent with two children, this would put a household income of $100,000, $444 you'd still be eligible for this program based on the updated figures.
If there's nothing further, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. That's carried. And we have another motion to be dealt with here from Councillor Bell. Do you want to speak to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So everyone's read this, and we had a person come and did a presentation to us, and Mr. Mayor and Madam Deputy Mayor, myself, we visited with folks about this and why I was encouraged basically to bring forward this notice of motion. And so really it's the last line. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Meaford direct staff to bring forward a report discussing the viability of a heavy commercial truck ban on the 8th concession north. And I hope that when staff look into this, bringing back a report, what those words mean and the ability to do so, what the implications of that are, not just for the 8th concession, but everywhere in the municipality. So because the group did have a spokesperson, I think this has got some far-reaching implications. But in the beginning of it, it did say that council wants to show residents that we listen to them. And so I brought this forward. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Kivany. Any discussion? Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks again, Your Worship. I'm glad Councillor Bell brought this forward and the Deputy Mayor has seconded it. And I'm especially glad that we're just voting on a report coming back. As I looked to that with much interest, because I heard the same concerns on 6th concession north of the highway. Heard the same concerns on concession 3 of St. Vincent, and even some of the downtown streets. So this is I'm really looking forward to the report. It'll be very interesting. I do hope. I've been thinking about this, and just throw out to our staff, and I'm sure you've already thought of this. To take away the heavy truck traffic from concession 8 north, likely means anything heading north is going to go down to County Road 15, partway down the hill, going into Sound. And I hope you take into consideration the ease or the difficulty that might be created by making that turn northward onto County Road 15 for a 35-ton truck. That may be a bit of a challenge. Thank you.
Ready for the vote? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Looking at adoption of minutes next. We have a recommendation to, I guess, do we get this onto the table here? We need a mover and seconder to approve these minutes for 4 meetings. So moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Keaveney. So this is dealing with the minutes for December 5th and 7th and 12th. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And then minutes from Grey County Council. And I guess the rest of the correspondence, as far as that goes, is there anything in the correspondence that anyone wants to raise? Councillor Greenfield.
Thanks again, Your Worship. And I assure everyone I'm usually not this vocal, but I want to thank Councillor Uhrig for his report on the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority first meeting and draft budget. I felt sorry for Councillor Uhrig and Bell. First of all, they were called to a meeting 3 days before Christmas Eve, which is maybe some wouldn't have been very pleased about that. But then to get thrown into the fire with coming up with a budget, I give you two gentlemen much credit for taking part in that and for bringing the budget to us. Now, one thing Mr. Forder, Mr. Uhrig, sorry, didn't mention in his report that I think that budget calls for $60,000 to come from reserves for 2023. I think that's quite commendable. That's not a huge amount, and that's one that I think you folks have done a real good job on. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to discussing that one further.
Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kentner. And on D with Grey Sauble, is the budget cast in stone or are you still working on it? For Grey Sauble.
Sorry, through your worship, it's gone to all the municipalities for approval. They're satisfied with it at that level. So we're supposed to go in February. We're supposed to be voting on it, whatever the municipality sent back,
So we're approving that budget as we speak.
basically.
So would we vote on that separately or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as with a number of these organisations, council really isn't approving the individual budget, it's approving the entire amount that's being allocated. So the however much it is that the Grey Sauble have requested the municipality fund, that will just be part of the budget that's presented to you on January 30th.
Yeah, Councillor Keaveney.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a quick comment on C with the refund provisions being changed from January 1st to the July 1st, the bill update 109. And I just wondered if Director Voigt wanted to comment at all on that. That seemed to me like pretty good news.
I'll have to apologize. I was just setting up a scheduled meeting tomorrow, so I am unbelievably embarrassed. Please, if you could, please refer to that again.
Okay, see in our communications. My microphone. See in our communications, the update on Bill 109, which reflects the refund change provisions from January the 1st, 23 to July 1st. I just, as I say, I thought that was good news.
So yes, through your worship, that is good news. Anytime that particular the changes we've been seeing in this past year, anytime that we are given more time to deal with these drastic changes that are dealing with all aspects of development review is positive. I'm hoping that there's more of these coming forward. I will note also that we are still waiting for understanding the rest of the provisions that happened. I'm going to get my months wrong, but in the, as we were entering into the after the election, the provincial government also changed a whole variety of other things for us on the planning end of things. We don't know how that's going to impact things like development charges and that. So I'm hoping that in a similar vein, they rethink it, and when these regulations come forward, that it is also positive news for us. So thank you for noting that. I apologize again.
So, sorry, Councillor Bartley.
Thank you, Mayor Kettner. And I'm still a little bit confused with accepting the conservation budget. If we wait till our budget's done and we say, yeah, we're going to keep it in, I think that's too late. And I'm not trying to tell you how to do the job, but you were called into an emergency meeting to do a budget. And so it was a half an hour conversation is done, or I have a concern with 5%. I understand inflation. I understand it immensely. But every time we throw 5%, we're adding to the inflation. And like at county, we just said, no, you have to go back to the drawing board. I'm a little concerned with 5%. So I think it should be discussed. If it comes to a vote, I'm not for that. Thank you.
Sure. We've already passed motions here, but I don't know if we can. That is to say, the opportunity to bring a motion forward passed here a few moments ago, but I don't know if we could go back to that. I understand what you're saying here. We've one of the components of our budget is going up by 5%. And I don't see why we couldn't at least send a letter to the Conservation Authority and say that's, too rich for our blood, but.
So you can. We're in communications, so we can pass motions about the things that are on the communications list. I think what I'll say is that organizations like Grace Orbital are in a bit of an awkward spot here because they have to tell the municipalities what they think their budget should change, but they can't actually approve their budget till after municipalities have approved their budget because we have to approve the total that will go back to them. So we could pass a motion to say that we wanted to send a letter saying, please rethink this, it's too much. Or during the budget process, you could make amendments to the budget to reduce the allocation going to Grace Orbital, and then in effect, they would just have to sort of redo their budget to get to that number. So
Councillor Greenfield, you probably have a better understanding of how the Conservation Authority works.
Well, in the past, Meaford Council as a whole has been very cordial in leaving it up to their two reps on GSCA to speak basically yay or nay on behalf of the council, and that's pretty well the way we've done it. I'm not going to question Councillor Bell and Councillor Urick, but I will say I didn't expect the Grace Orbital budget to come back this quickly. I thought maybe January. I thought you folks would have a second shot because again, you're brand new on that board. There's a lot of things happening over there, if I remember correctly. So I think it must have really put you in a difficult spot to, a number of projects that you were not familiar with. And so as I say, I'm surprised this came to us so quickly. I thought we'd get another month and you folks could have another meeting and discuss it more. But I think Mr. Smith's correct. I don't think we're etching in stone this 5.33.
Councillor Urick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, it's true. And to Mr. Bartley, you're right. It's 5%. I will put the caveat, and I'm going to put in quotes only $10,000. It's not substantial. It is substantial. I get it. It's 5%. and to your point, Harley, is absolutely correct. Like, we were totally thrown into this. I can honestly say that at that meeting, there were not even all the going to be committee members that are going to be at that table, because many municipalities hadn't even gone through their committee process yet. So it seemed very strange, you're right, to be having a conversation with people that won't even be at the table long term about what that budget was going to be. Having said that, using the same recommendations that staff would hear, validating their positions on what they do and the value therein. We looked at what was proposed and knowing where costs are going. They validated much of it. A lot of theirs was as well. They had things like cleaning was huge. They had things like talent where their prices were going way up as well. So their validations were apt. But your point is also, because we can now go back and say, if we do not feel comfortable that, council can say no, we can go back and have that conversation. But based on what we knew at the time, based on what staff's giving us from there, it's kind of how we reached the decision to put it forth, to be here at this body, to feel whether we're comfortable with that, to go back and have a conversation about, does this need to be tweaked because council isn't comfortable with it? Hope that explains the process.
Councillor Bell, do you want to speak to this?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, the last page of the report, it's proposed. And one of the things that was brought up at the meeting, and I know Councillor Greenfield, you'll be aware of this, they're looking to build a new facility. So that was talked about too, the age of the old facility, the funding to put in place for a new one and so on. So at this point, I'm comfortable going back to them when we get a chance of going back, and it's a proposed increase. So it's not etched in stone.
So Councillor Bartley, do you wish to bring a motion in?
No, I'm going to retract my comments and leave it up to our two people on Grace Sobel. They know how we feel, and let them do their job. Thank you.
Well, I believe that we are ready to close this meeting, and no, we're not. Okay. Yeah, okay, we are going into a closed session, so I guess what I have to do is invite our guest to exit at this point. I'm sure you'd be very happy to. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to throw one more wrench into this. Committee of Adjustment. Do we need somebody on that before May, June, July?
Yes.
So we didn't put that forward today, correct?
It's coming in the closed meeting.
Committee of Adjustment?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I thought we were canceling them all for now.
No, we have a closed meeting coming up, but I understand I don't adjourn this meeting. I just, I'm a new mayor.
So we need a mover and a seconder to pass the motion to go into closed, and then we'll invite our
All
guests to
right.
leave.
So do we have a mover for the going into closed session at this time? Moved by Councillor Forder, seconded by Councillor Bell. And I declare this meeting or this portion of the meeting adjourned, and thank our guests for being with us. And I'm going to suggest that we reconvene in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.